Hello, and welcome to the Knights of Last Call. My name is Derek Melenda, your host and game master. I invite you to join us each week as we play the legendary Rise of the Rune Lords adventure path using the second edition of the Pathfinder role-playing game.
And that is how it all began 5 years ago. Roll for Combat says that is painful. Yeah, we were not on the equipment that we're on now. Hey everybody. Sorry I was a little late. I had to go make myself a nice cup of tea as I am still recovering. But I definitely wanted to stream today because we made our first post on Knights of Last Call November 30th, 2020. And I set the time for about 11:20 for this stream. I didn't know if I was even going to do this today because, again, I haven't been feeling well. But I remember it was very late in the day when I streamed. I told myself I wanted to post before December, and it was November 30th. And so I had to, I was, getting everything edited, and then I said, screw it. It was late, and everyone said, oh, you can't publish, you can't publish late. And I was like, it doesn't matter. No one's ever going to watch this anyways. So I published, around 11:15, 11:30 on November 30th, 2020. And that is how it all began. That's what kicked us off. That's what started this whole thing. And here we are somehow, incredibly, amazingly, much amount of time later. Enrique, thank you so much. Let me see here. Okay, cool. We are picking up Twitch. But thank you so much for everybody for that. Really, really appreciate that. By the way, before we get too much into it, Rimasi, thank you for the 7 months resub. Thank you. Appreciate you. Before we get into it too much, I want to point out that the tip fund is $100 higher than the last time that we played it, because great friend of the channel, Erica, came in after hours on the VOD, and of course we streamed on Tuesday when we did BattleTech, but she came in later on the VOD and she dropped $100 towards the emergency refit laptop fund. So shout out to Erica. Thank you so much for that, Erica. Really, really appreciate you. I did not miss it, but I did not respond right away because, again, I've mostly been sleeping. And then today, the Zeus man, my 11-year-old dog, was sick. He wasn't feeling well, so I got to clean up his vomit. So there was that. Anyways, good times. The self-confessed cynic coming in with Rise of the Rune Lords was the high point, and everything's been downhill since then. We also had a super chat from Boothby. We got a tip coming in from Edward. Thank you, Edward. Oh, why isn't that talking? Oh, did I turn that off? I'm sorry about that, guys. I don't know why that's turned off. Thank you, Sent
$20.
Oh, Edward, just you.
Congratulations on 5 years. Thanks for the entertaining conversations on Discord.
Well, thank you, Sen. And Edward, I don't know why it didn't read your tip out. I was like, oh, is it broken? And then no, it was just you. You broke it. But thank you, Sen. And Edward said, don't tell my wallet about this. Thanks for all the great videos and fostering an amazing community. Nimble 2 reaches went. Oh, Edward. We're gonna have enough trouble getting Lancer reaches off the boat, and then I still got to figure out what to do for Dragon Tide and Northern Reaches Season 4, and apparently they went to space this year. I don't know how you could top that. I don't know how you could top going to space. So what do we do from here? But thank you so much for that. Boothby, turning in for the night. Sorry, but wanted to say congratulations, thanks for the awesome community. Well, thank you, G Pote. It means a lot to me. Thank you, greatest player of all time. Thank you. Where is the PlushyCon tip fund? Yeah, that is missing. It's also not PlushyCon. It's Anacon. Whatever it's called. Pumpkin says, as someone who came in right after Rise of Rune Lords, I think it's only gotten better since. Yeah, well, it was a rough time. I'm not gonna lie, for the channel. Obviously, after our actual play, well, look, it's late. We could talk, so the fact of the matter is that we had realized that, the actual plays weren't really going to be any sort of, well, it wasn't really going to be any sort of thing that we were actually ever going to be able to make any sort of money off of. And so it's funny how everything works out to a certain extent, and there's reason. So when this channel started, we were playing out of my photography studio, which I was renting anyways. I had a lease, and my photography business was failing, COVID and all that other jazz. And plus, I'm just not a very good business person. But I had the lease anyways, right? So I kept the lease going. And that took us all through 2020 and into 2021. Well, in 2021, I got a job, like a real job. And ironically, this channel, it started right before I got my job, and then I lost my job earlier this year. So the channel has bookended both ends of this job. So anyways, I got a job, and I knew I was going to be making money. And so I told the guys, at that point, Rise of the Rune Lords had been going for about 6 months. We had done, or give or take, 4 or 5 months. We had done about, 12, 13, 14 episodes. We were having fun with it. We had built up way more people than we'd ever expected. And I told the fellas, I said, hey, this is a lot of fun. And I live in a small condo. So I was like, there's no way I could host all this photography equipment and lights and all this other stuff in my condo. Ironically, we're in a bedroom now. I didn't realize how far I was going to be willing to go now. And obviously none of my other, people were. And I said, but I think this thing has legs. If you guys are committed to it, I will go sign a new lease on a new space, and we can really commit to this thing. And everyone was like, absolutely. Nope. Yeah, of course. 100%. So this was springtime 2021. So naturally, I signed that lease. It was a 3-year lease. It's a commercial lease. And instantaneously, we filmed some episodes, and then summertime hit, and instantaneously, everyone stopped coming. And, again, I'm not, no. COVID happened in 2020. So, this was 2021. So we were, past COVID at that point. No, what it was is, I think a lot of the guys, had signed up for the channel or signed up to do this because they thought it was just a fun thing to do, which is fair. But it had become popular, and it had become work to a certain extent. And I'm not saying I was a taskmaster but I was treating it more seriously than they were. And you might say, well, that's because you were making more money. Well, no, the channel still didn't make a dime, and I was putting in about $2,000 a month to keep the channel, to pay the rent, to pay the utilities and stuff like that. So again, through the first 2 years of this channel, I probably spent somewhere in the neighborhood of around $50,000 to $75,000 on rent, utilities, insurance, payouts to my crew, lights and more lights, cameras, setting equipment, audio, improving our audio visual, all this other stuff. So, everyone here has been in some, not in some small part or in some not some small part, a big part of the reason why we've managed to, claw our way back. And we started this channel in 2020. The first year that I made money was 2024, right? When I filed my 2024 taxes, that was the first time that this channel ever made money. So 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 4 years of negative returns on this channel. So yeah. Anyways, but everyone stopped coming. They weren't as interested anymore. It felt more like a job and all this other stuff. So when people would, and of course people would cancel, they wouldn't cancel like a week in advance or the day before or the morning of. No, we would be like scheduled to film at like 7:00, and I would get a text at like 6:15 saying then they're not coming. So what that led us to do is I said, well, shit, we already had some people here. I'm paying close to $2,000 a month for this studio. Okay, we're going to turn the cameras on and we're just going to talk about games. And that's where Combat and Tactics series was born, and some of the discussions, Missing Sucks, and some of our other quote unquote big initial videos came from. And that was the first time that we ever actually got what I will call success. Now, in the grand scheme of things, of course, compared to like actual successful YouTube channels, it was next to nothing. But for the first time ever, it really seemed like we were going to be able to become monetized and actually be able to make money from, by that I mean like, tens of dollars a month from YouTube. And so that was like a huge deal. And we were still making videos. So ironically, the fact that people in the Knights of Last Call were flaking out all the time in some ways led us to being forced to do something different, which was basically, hey, I'm going to take the 3 people or the 2 people who showed up today, right? I'm going to take, Bob and Nick or whatever, and we're going to talk about stealth, or we're going to talk about athletics actions in Pathfinder 2. And so that led to that, sort of experience. And then as we moved on into the fall of 2021, some of you may not remember this, but we had basically stopped doing the Rise of the Rune Lords. The AP was still officially going on, but we hadn't made a new video in months. It's because I could not get people together to play. And I was, quite frankly, not really motivated to do it, because filming one of those, editing one of those was a tremendous amount of time. I talk today about how I don't like editing. Well, a lot of the people who do editing for YouTube are, they're editing a 15-minute video with, it's just them. They control everything. And it's a 15-minute video. And, it's one camera. They control everything. I was filming 5 or 6 or 7 different camera angles. We would film for 7 or 8 hours. It was a tremendous amount of work. Agile Monk, thank you so much. 11 months on the adventure. Thank you for the support. I really appreciate you. I'm glad you're here now. It's been a long journey, and thanks to people like you, we can keep on doing it. So, anyways, well, during that time, I had started to become a little bit irritated, to be honest with you, with the Knights. And I was kind of getting irritated with the whole YouTube thing, and it was just taking me too much work. And so at the end of 2021, I'm trying to remember how or why this came about, but I decided to do a live stream. Oh, I know what it was. We used to do a live stream, but it was only for our patrons, and we did it once a month. And that was a lot of fun. I had fun doing that. It was not fun doing all the filming and editing, but it was fun going live. And I had only done that with my patrons. And so I decided to go live on New Year's Eve 2021 with Tim. And we did our first live stream here on the channel. And that was a tremendous success. And more importantly, it was tremendously easy. It was right into my wheelhouse. And we went right from that into one of the most legendary series of all times, of course. If you're here and you were there back then, you know what live stream series that was. Originally, live stream just meant this series. We didn't actually do anything else but this series. So nowadays that's what our show is. Our channel is just a bunch of live streams. But back in the day, it was only all spells ranked. And so yes. Agile Monk, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I love and appreciate you too, buddy. Thank you, Wojo.
Wojo tipped $10. Cheers to 5 years.
Thank you, Agile Monk. Thank you, Wojo. I really appreciate you. Cheers to you there, Wojo. Appreciate you. Again, I'll go back to the story in a second, but something that I thought was interesting is today in the Patreon Discord, I was posting a bunch of images that I have tagged as KOLC. And in the beginning, it's just me and Bob and Tim and whatever in the studios, and then Smith and Nick and all that other stuff. And then as time goes on, right, you see less and less of the Knights, and more and more and more of community members, right? There's more and more pictures from cons. There's more and more pictures from Origins, from meetups. There's more and more pictures of people who came and visited us here in Cleveland and got to hang out with us in person. And I love how the channel has not only grown beyond the actual play in terms of, a content, but also in terms of the people involved. It's not just the 3 or 4 Knights of Last Call no longer means it was the 3 or 4 people that happen to be on the TV. It really now, in some ways, means more this community of people, which I think is really, really actually cool. And I didn't even really intend for that, but it was just kind of a natural extension and fact of the matter. We still have to go back and redo all the spells. No, we were never going to redo all of them. We were just going to redo the ones that had been substantially changed, right, if we ever run out of stuff. Binging ASR is how I got cooked. Well, in some ways, All Spells Ranked kind of really defines what it meant to do Knights of Last Call content. It was incredibly in-depth. It was incredibly lengthy. It was incredibly full of what we'll call hot takes, right? Derek doesn't like this spell. Derek doesn't like this spell. Derek doesn't like this spell. Derek doesn't like this spell, right? And it also sort of, our sort of, self-deprecating style there, like all of the thumbnails were always pictures of, famous wizards or druids or whatever, clerics, and I would Photoshop my face in, and we got further and further, and it became almost this like funny thing of like, oh, Derek is suffering, and we love it. And so that kind of, in some ways, set the tone for things to come. So the live streams were working really well, and I enjoyed doing them a lot. So then I reached back out to the fellas, and I said, guys, we still have this actual play. Okay, so now we're in 2022, and I said, here's the deal, guys. I get it. Making your way over to Cleveland or making your way over to my studio on a Tuesday night or a Thursday night is a lot of work. We film at 7, so you get done with work. By the time you get home and deal with the wife or the kids or whatever your situation is, then you got to get back on the road. You got to drive out to me. Here's what we'll do. How about we just go live? Okay, we'll do it from. You guys all have great computers. We'll do it from home. And we'll just do it that way. We'll play on Foundry. And it was, so we came back with It's About Damn Time, which was the name of, I think it was episode 33. And Dam, D-A-M, was a play on the Stonewall Dam because they were in the middle of that venture. But it was also a play on the famous StarCraft 2 trailer announcement, right? Where Tychus Finchley goes, it's about damn time. Anyways, it was called It's About Damn Time. And that started the end of that adventure. And so then we had our live stream. And our live streams, we had learned about tips and super chats, and we were making a lot more money than we had ever made with video, production content. And we thought it'd be cool to introduce options for players or watchers to affect the game. We're not Critical Role, but let's make this interesting and fun. So we gave people at home the ability to buy people hero points. And then, of course, people said, I don't want to buy them hero points. I want to give you villain points. And I said, well, that doesn't really work in the way that I want to do it. How about we create this random wheel of bad effects? So we did that. It was called the Wheel of Pain. And then people complained that the Wheel of Pain wasn't hard enough. And so Smith and I redesigned the Wheel of Pain, and we made it extremely painful. We also kind of made the Wheel of Destiny, but nobody really cared about the Wheel of Destiny. And then, very famously, our TPK happened. We made the most money this channel's ever made in a single session. And so we were there. So so one of the things too that people have learned about me over time is that Smith too. This is the reason Smith and I are a very dangerous combination. Smith and I will occasionally cut off our own nose to spite our face. And Smith and I will go to a tremendous amount of work and effort just to prove someone else wrong. And I'm not actually calling them out, okay? Because it's not actually a call out, but after the TPK and after all that happened, everyone was like, okay, what's next? Now, back then, this seemed like a very long time, but the fact of the matter was, just a few months later, we started a new Pathfinder 2 actual play, which was called Quest for the Frozen Flame. And it was at the time, it was a brand new adventure path. It was made for PF2, so I didn't have to convert anything, which was convenient. It seemed like it was really, really cool at the time. But here's the deal. A lot of people, the community, so full disclosure, when the Rise of the Rune Lords TPK happened, we lost a lot of people. We lost a lot of subs. We lost a lot of patrons, people who were here, quote, just for the adventure path. People who were mad that we let it happen. People who were mad that we didn't, pull it back or anything like that. That we didn't roll it back, that I didn't fudge, that I didn't hand waif it. I said, nope, this is the way it goes. But what ended up happening was a lot of people, even the people who stayed, said, Derek, I don't think you need all the gamey, gimmicky game show stuff. Okay. You guys are good. You guys don't need all the crazy rules, and you don't need all of the weird, wonky, you don't need all the weird, wonky wheels of pain and tipping stuff. Just run. People will, trust me, if you build it, they will come. Now, Smith and I knew that this was 100% horrible. This was not, this was 100% not true. We knew that this was not true. And again, I'm not specifically calling out this one person because many people said it. But I remember specifically, Pawn No Longer was like, you guys are great. You guys are the best. And if you guys just play it straight, you'll see. So Smith and I said, and I knew going into this would not work. And I said, okay, so here's what I'm going to do. We're going to do a live stream to eliminate any of the problems. We're going to bring in Kaz. We're going to bring in, for the first time, Kaz. We're going to bring Smith in on the AP, right? Again, it wasn't just Pawn No Longer. It was a wide variety of people, both patrons and not, okay? By the way, back then, the Patreon was probably like 80, 90 people. Now it's close to 600. And I said, okay, here's the way we're going to work this, guys. There's going to be no gimmicky wheels of pain. There's going to be no tipping to unlock crazy, stupid stuff. We're just going to play it straight out. Okay. And, people can support and tip and watch, and we're going to play no, weird, goofy stuff. We're going to try to play it, no, we're not going to try to be Critical Role, but we're going to try to play, legitimate Pathfinder 2. And, Bob, Tim, Kaz, Smith, some of my favorite players I've ever played with over 30 plus years of gaming. Quest for the Frozen Flames did horrible. We made, and not only that, because again, cutting off my nose to spite my face, I wrote a contract with all of my players guaranteeing them a certain amount of salary. Okay. And so I was paying like $200 a session to GM for a group of people. And not even making close to a quarter of that in tips. And our viewership was terrible. And by the way, if you watched Quest for the Frozen Flame, I have to say, the production quality, in my opinion, was very high, which is that I had a custom frame built for it. We had music, we had fonts, we had like a lot of Foundry integration so that people could see the hit points and the hero points and everyone's AC dynamically. Everyone had their own stream overlay. We had a bunch of custom stuff that that was a very, what I'll call, high quality stream. Tim, Kaz, Smith, they all had shit microphones. So I bought them, $200-$300 worth of microphones. We got people set up so that, we bought lights for people who needed lights because they didn't have any lights on their face. So yeah, we tried to make it as professional as we could. And the market, and we played PF2 with a brand new adventure path, right? The one that everybody was saying was really good. and it completely fell apart, and we got no views on it, like none, and no tips. In fact, the only money that adventure path made was at the end, when I was already like, fuck it, I couldn't keep it up anymore. I had finally read the end of that first adventure, which was terrible. And I had already decided that it made no sense and I was going to have to completely rebuild the whole thing. But I finally started sort of cracking a little bit, and we had some tip goals to unleash the beast of Kaz and the joke of Tim's intelligent weapon hatchet, which we became known as Hatchet Hoff. And we had some tip goals that were just designed to be like, kind of memey and trolly a little bit. And those finally gave us a little bit of money. Otherwise, I would have been so underwater from that thing. It would have been crazy. And this is just an indication of where, this is what it's like playing with adults. This was a live stream from your house once a week to play Pathfinder 2nd Edition for 3 hours with me as a GM. Not like saying that that's the most incredible thing ever, but I would like to think I'm better than the average GM. With a crowd of adoring fans who love watching you play, and you're being paid to do it. And we still had people who didn't make it to episodes because life is a bitch, and things are hard and people go through stuff. And so I was kind of just like, at that point, I was like, man, I can't even pay people to play, Pathfinder 2nd Edition with me, let alone make any money. So that was kind of the nail in the coffin. That was kind of the nail in the coffin for me. And we kind of never went back to PF2 after that. So, 2023 was the rise of, we're rebuilding the studio because we wanted to be back in person. And it took us all year. And then finally, at the end of 2023, we launched our Root actual play. And if we thought Quest for the Frozen Flame did terrible, well, Root made it look like a fucking slam dunk. And after all of the effort that I put into building a studio and trying to, and again, part of it was selfish. Like, I wanted to play in person again, and I thought that would be a lot of fun. And it was, but it just, the market did not reward it. And so after Root in 2023, we moved into 2024. And of course, in 2024, the lease on my studio was up, and they wanted to renegotiate, and they wanted a lot more money. And I said, no. I said, it's just not worth it for me to have it. It doesn't make any financial sense. And so I broke the lease on the studio. We moved everything into storage. And believe it or not, that was the first year we actually ever made money, because I didn't have that massive overhead hanging over my head. And then as we moved into 2025, I lost my job. So that's even better. And the only reason that I'm able to even sustain this idea of being a full-time YouTuber is because I don't have this massive overhead. But that being said, yeah, we have not done an actual play. And since Root, and they've just never been economically viable. Outside of that, we were going to do the Daggerheart. We were going to do the Daggerheart actual play, but even then, that was with 3 people. And right off the rip, Smith, my favorite person of all time, was basically like, guys, I got to step away from, games and social life for a while. I got to take care of my family. And I said, okay. And then Tim's mom got hurt, and he had to take care of her. Not to mention, she was usually his babysitter. And so, suddenly it was like, we went from, we used to have 5 people on the show. Then I was like, okay, let's try to do 3 people on the show. And then it was like, and 3 went to 1, so it was pretty crazy. We had some super chats. I apologize, I missed them. Agile Monk said that he loves me and he appreciates me, and I love Agile Monk. And Wojo said he loves me and he appreciates me, and I love Wojo. Nilbog, sorry I missed your chat. Nilbog with a 6-month resub on Prime said 5 years on Twitch. Where does the time go? Well, technically, Nilbog, it wasn't 5 years on Twitch. We just got onto Twitch this year. So we've actually not been on Twitch. We've only been on YouTube. So, and then Dr. Metropolis. Dr. Metropolis says, oh, yeah, you are in Cleveland. Congrats on 5 years from another Ohioan in the cornfields. Well, I'm up in Northeast Ohio. There's not too many cornfields up here. We're a little bit more, we're the Cleveland metropolitan area. So it's a little bit more, urban. So, and at some point along the way, people realized that Derek has played and owns an infinity of role-playing games, and we started talking about them. And that became very, very popular. First Looks became very popular. Talking about, our RPGs became very popular, and that really grew our Patreon. And then when we started running our first mega game, which was called Northern Reaches, at the time, our Patreon was about 100 people. Oh, thank you, Lion's Head Gaming. Welcome to the adventure. Well, thank you so much for joining Lion's Head Gaming. I'm glad to have you here. It's funny, Lion's Head Gaming. Actually, the reason this sponsorship exists is technically because by sponsoring the channel, that is actually supposed to be a direct contribution to the actual play, which is really funny because we don't have an actual play and we haven't had an actual play for 18 months. But that is really, really funny. Thank you, Lion's Head Gaming. Appreciate that. What was I saying? Oh, right. So at the time, the Patreon was about 100 people. Well, I appreciate you there, Lion's Head. We had about 100 people. And then when we did Northern Reaches, season 1, we doubled the Patreon. So the Patreon went from 100 people to 200 people. And just in a heartbeat, like over the course of like a month or two. And it was the first time ever that I was like, oh man, we're actually making money off of this Patreon. So Northern Reaches used to basically subsidize the channel, basically. And now, so at one point in time, Northern Reaches accounted for about 100 of the 200 patrons in the Patreon. Now, Northern Reaches accounts for about 60 people out of nearly 600. So Northern Reaches has gone from about a 50% market share to about a 10% market share. It's still the, one of the largest components in terms of any single contributor, but it is not what it, it's not the be all end all. And quite frankly, that's okay. Things change and the group for changes. But there was a time where, basically Bob and Smith, Knights of Last Call at one point basically became me, Bob, and Smith. I ran it. Bob and Smith really, really helped administrate it. And Bob and Smith's primary responsibility was managing and taking care of and dealing with Northern Reaches. And as time has gone on, that has become less and less of a thing that we worry about, to the point now where it is pretty much self-sustaining. And we have a council of GMs who've been running it for years, who basically do such a great job of running it that I don't have to worry about it. And that's good, but it's also good because, quite frankly, now it's only 10%. And I just can't afford to spend the kind of time and resources that we used to spend on it. If Northern Reach was 350 people, well, things would be different, but it's not. So, we've kind of become a victim of our own success, because now as a community, we are more diverse and, we are more diverse than ever, but in terms of gaming, in terms of everything, but in terms of gaming, we're more diverse than ever. But it also means that we're not a monolith anymore. And we can't just point at something and say, everybody plays this game. There was a time, or, for the first year or two, that pretty much everybody in Knights of Last Call in our community basically played Pathfinder 2. And as more and more people started playing other games, especially as we stopped playing Pathfinder, the community in some ways, we're all still joined together by our mutual love of RPGs, but it's not quite as, as homogenous as it used to be, which has its good sides and it has its bad sides. So, Nawi, I'm sure you've gotten this 1,000 times. What was the rationale for not playing something 5e based? I know you're not a fan, but it brings a familiar market. Because Nawi, I never wanted, to play 5e. I mean, that there's no reason for me to want to do that. I mean, basically, it's just because it would be successful doesn't necessarily mean that it's something that I want to do. Unfortunately, 5e is cool and all, but I don't know that I'm also bringing anything new to the 5e market that isn't already there. Hey, Lionhead, thank you for the very generous super chat as well. I flood the Trespasser 2.1 deep dive ballot box. Also, I don't know, fix your laptop or something. And also, congrats on sticking with this for 5 years. I got interviewed by Watsy even, and still gave it up. Yeah, this shit is so much harder than anyone could imagine. Salute. Well, yeah, salute to you too, Lionhead Gaming. I see Jess is here. I think I saw you earlier, Jess, but I was talking with Jess last week at PAX and Mark, and they're professional game designers, and it's just like, it's so less glorious and awesome than anyone would ever expect. And this YouTube thing is so crazy. And I tell people all the time that it's 50% luck, 40% skill, right? 30% concentrated force of will, or whatever it's so much of it is luck and trying to find and meet that audience. And I was lucky that I found an audience in what I'll call a more eclectic and thoughtful side of the role-playing game hobby. Our audience tends to skew a little bit older. Our audience tends to skew a little bit more educated, IT professionals. One of the things that I'm most proud of is that a lot of game designers, ask some random, person, ask another content creator if they know who we are, and they'll say no. But ask a game designer like Spencer Stark or Mike Underwood or Luke Crane, or you know what I mean, if they know who Knights of Last Call is, and they do. And I think that's kind of, again, it's not like a flex, because it's not like because those other channels are undoubtedly doing better than me. So they are obviously doing something very right. But I think that we are reaching an audience that is very, locked in with talking about games, and quite frankly has the appetite and the ability to sit here and talk about and listen to games for hours at a time. All right, what did Jess have to say? I do think your first looks are much better videos than your actual plays and your ranking videos, though I do fondly remember showing up in chat and making you re-rank them. Oh, we were just talking about that. Steven and I were just talking about that on Monday before I left Philly, Jess, about how I was like, I think the first time I had an interaction with Jess is when she came into chat and started giving me a ton of shit because I didn't rank the Dandy as a mechanics class. And she's like, it is absolutely a mechanical class. And I was like, and I didn't really know who you were. And I was like, holy shit. Okay. You know what? Listen, I could be wrong. And I went back and I re-looked at it and I was like, okay, yeah, fair. This is correct. Oh, well, thank you, Outercraft. Yeah. I mean, the idea is by having a lot of different views, we try to avoid echo chambers. I will ruthlessly crush echo chambers in my own community. Somebody posted a video about somebody shitting on Daggerheart, and I basically came in and I kind of defended this content creator, to my own community, because I was like, hey, I shit on things too, they didn't like it, and maybe their reasoning was bad, but maybe that's their reasoning and they have their own perspective. And so, again, I think it's important that we try to avoid groupthink. And I think it's important that we try to avoid this idea that one true gameism. Sometimes we get people who come into our community and they have discovered that first game that wasn't 5e D&D. Maybe they discovered it because of Knight's Last Call and they finally seen the light, but sometimes they just replace one true gameism for another true gameism. And I try to avoid that, as much as I can. That is very clear. We are definitely nutcases. Over, under. Well, it depends. We still have a lot of tea, and this has a lot of honey in it, so it's feeling good on my sore throat. I actually don't know who MF Doom is. Yeah, we do not do the attention economy. You know, I don't do any of that stuff. So. Tech TV instead of G4. Shout out Morgan Webb and Olivia Munn and Christ, what was his name? Who is Morgan Webb's co-host? They're talking about something in something amusement parky. That's exactly right, Cinebots. This is whatever the opposite of an echo chamber it is. Sometimes we disagree just to disagree, which is fine. Yes, I do play the devil's advocate all the time. Yeah, Kevin Pereira, that was it. He was awesome too. Have I ever played the Uwe Rosenberg game Babel? I have not. There's a newer version of it with a different theme on sale. I'm trying to decide if I pick it up. Also, congrats on 5 years. Pumpkin, I have not played Babel. I do not know that one. I've played a lot of Uwe Rosenberg games. I own a lot of Uwe Rosenberg games, but I have not played Babel. Well, it came out in 2000, so it is an older game. But no, I've never played it. Thank you, Duncant. I missed your... Where is your thing here? Can't find it. But Duncant, thank you for the 5 months resub for the tier 1. 5-month tier 1, Duncant. Zen Bullet, thank you. This is a finder fee for the Beacon Kickstarter, technically, but happy anniversary anyways. Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, Beacon was really cool, and I'm hoping that they can figure out the VTT situation. That's what I'll say that. But thank you, Zen Bullet. There we go. I knew that. I was trying to find it. Thank you for the 5-month. Done can't. Appreciate you. We definitely put the Discord in Discord. Yeah, I mean that is a nice thing to say, Mecha Mage. I love how it's made. I grew up watching. I mean, I remember watching How It's Made all the time. Back when like the Learning Channel or whatever History Channel actually had, you know, stuff that you could learn from. And even to this day, sometimes it'll get recommended to me on YouTube and I'll sit there and watch like, how do they make springs and how do they make baseball bats? And I love that stuff. I think that is so fascinating. Well, you joke Outercraft. But you know, I think realistically, if I want to be successful as a YouTuber, I do have to reach a wider audience. And I think part of the way to do that is to try to engage the 5e audience. That doesn't mean I have to make, you know, top 5 feats to make your GM go crazy or DM go crazy. But you know, I've noticed that a lot of content creators who have come onto the scene relatively recently and are doing really well, you know, closing in on their silver play buttons and everything, 100,000 subs, basically just take ideas from other games and then present them as their own ideas. But they present them to 5e players. And yes, that's Jake, you got it exactly right. Steal this mechanic to make your 5e game better. They have basically built their entire, I'm not going to name names or name drop or anything, sandbag anybody, but there's a handful of content creators. Some of them I think are, you know, they have good production qualities. I think they look good, but they are basically either knowingly or unknowingly, or let me say, they're definitely knowingly stealing a mechanic, but they're either presenting it as take this mechanic from this other game, or they don't mention the other game. They just mention the mechanic. Not saying that they, you know, are saying it that they created it or not, but I have seen a lot of people be very successful with this. Right. If I, you know, clocks, and people will be like, oh. Have you already reacted to the Hope and Fear videos and interviews? No, I have not. The problem with the Hope and Fear interviews is the Hope and Fear, most of it is the new classes, the new domain, and the transformations. And we've already done very extensive deep dives. I wish you did reactions. I just hate reaction content videos in general. And so I don't watch them myself personally. So the idea of making them, I feel, is very unappealing, unfortunately. That is my problem too, Hodop. That is my problem too. Now we ask for all the hard stuff. Yeah, no, it basically cannot be done now. It basically cannot be done. It would take me, let's say I did a 5-hour stream. It would, at minimum, take me a full day's work to edit that down to a meaningful way. Like, I mean, could I eliminate, I don't know, the handful of times I'm literally, not on screen or something? Sure. But at the very least, I have to watch it. So it's going to take me 5 hours, right? And that's assuming it doesn't take me any extra time to edit it. And then I'll post it, and it will make, 400, 500, 600 views. So that'll make me somewhere in the neighborhood of like $1, maybe like 75 cents. So asking me to spend an entire workday to make 75 cents is a little bit of a hard ask, unfortunately. But right, my videos are reaction proof. You can't do it. Right, my reaction content is five hours longer than the content that they did. Is this thing touching again? Hold on a second. No, okay. You are so difficult and weird. Like debating whether you like a progress bar or a circuit is so crazy. And then Jess says, okay, but this is why the PF2 community is constantly losing their mind, though, because you see Endless do this novel thing in 5e, and 50% of it is just recreating PF2. But if you say PF2 in the comments, that's evil. Yeah, there's some weird stuff. There's some weird, I don't know what it is. The 5e audience, they have their echo chamber and they like it. Again, they're happy with the game that they like. I'm trying to think of a good example of it, but it's like, and we live in an era where, we're supposed to, not yuck anybody's yum and things like that. So it seems like you're trying to say that they're having fun wrong, basically. Yeah, if you don't think people watch videos, Selwood, nobody's reading an essay. I mean, I respect people who do blogs out there, and I would say keep blogging, but blogs are dead. The only people who blog are like, people still writing about weapon speed factors for their game that started in 1979. Yeah, so Justin Alexander, basically. So, exactly. It's mostly for the OSR these days. Oh, listen, PF2 was not by any stretch of the imagination. The PF2 audience is terrible in their own way. So yeah, that is 100% this. And the thing about Pathfinder 2 though is if I try to point out that the thing that you like about Pathfinder 2 is actually just taken from 4th edition D&D, well then the Pathfinder 2 audience gets as upset and disturbed as the 5e audience does when you point out that you're just using something from Pathfinder 2. So really it's just bitter, resentful communities all the way down, right? Now, I don't know exactly what you mean by that, Zelwood, but I do have an interesting little factoid, which is that I looked at it the other day. in the last, maybe it was just this year. Yeah, so I think it was this year. So almost 2025, almost all of 2025. What? And we'll do a poll. Where's my poll? Here we go. Get my poll up. Oh, that's not my poll. Here we go. My poll up. Okay. All right. New poll coming in hot. Oh, that's not it. There we go. All right. What percentage of my audience watches my content on a mobile device? And these are, 3, 4, 5 hour streams. Take your best guess. This is just all hours watched, Massey. All hours watched. So it includes live, but it also includes VODs and stuff like that. Cal?
Calderiarch tipped $3. It's just tribalism. 5e versus PF2, COD versus BF6, Coke versus Pepsi, Overwatch versus Marvel Rivals, etc.
It's true, which is why we avoid that, and we just talk about games that nobody knows. See? Big brain. Can't be part of a tribal culture war if nobody plays that game, right? Right? See, look, we got a pretty nice little distribution over here. It doesn't seem to be any sort of normalization occurring here. I mean, there does seem to be sort of a linear drop off, obviously, but it's the votes are fairly well tied. I'm sorry that you can't see chat. I apologize. Here, I'll cover my face. Nobody wants to see that. Right, exactly. The bitter hatred of the Tenra Bancho Zero community versus the Battle Century Gothic. Oh, that hatred is known deep throughout the lore of the internet. Now you just type in chat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. Elaine, thank you so much. Appreciate you. $10. Thank you so much. Appreciate the donation. Thank you for the anniversary. I appreciate you so much. All right. I'll get the exact value. YouTube. So that we know what's going on here. All right. Analytics, audience. All right. All right. Drum roll. The grand total is 48% mobile phone and 5% tablet. So it is 53%. 53%. So I will say that if you voted for 5, you are the most correct. But there you go. 53% is on a mobile phone. 10%, believe it or not, is on a TV. I thought that was kind of crazy. So 36% are on an actual, honest to God computer. Let's see. The majority of our watchers are between the ages of 25 and 45, with a very significant group in 45 to 55. We have more people that are in their 60s than we have people that are in the 18 to 24. Let's see here. Our most common subtitled language, which isn't English, is Russian, which I'm going to say is probably bots. Our top geographies are United States, 51%, Canada, 6%, UK, 5%, Brazil, 3%, Australia, 2.9%. Gender, 99% male. Howdy, boys. Let's see here. Let's take a look at the last 9 days. Fermi Dirac says, oof, 99%. Oh, that's pretty common for almost everybody. I mean, I've talked to other content creators in our space. It is usually about 99%. Give or take. But yeah. Our most popular wide-reaching stream this year was D&D Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford clickbait video. Now, that wasn't our most popular video, but it was the one that reached the widest and different audience. That's exactly right, Erica. What's up, fellow 1%ers? There you go. Well, it doesn't necessarily mean that only 1% of women are gamers, obviously, but it does mean that, not many women want to watch a single white male, spout about nonsense for hours at a time, maybe. So there's that. I mean, if I follow the analytics from YouTube, I would only do videos about Daggerheart and Draw Steel. Zelwood, am I neurotypical? Signs point to yes, but it's unclear. There are some elements of me that are somewhat non-typical. Actually, Cosmere did actually fairly bad. That game has fallen off a cliff. Elaine, so much. I mean, listen, 1% of our audience is still a very large amount of people. Let me see here. Let's see here. Content. This year, we did almost 750,000 views. Now, what's the audience on that? Let me see here. Our monthly audience is about 9,000 people. So there you go. So 1% is about, 90 people. Give or take. Let's just round it up to 100. That's our monthly audience, about 9,000 folks, give or take. I don't think there are any Cosmere content creators, honestly. I don't think there are. I could be wrong. I mean, it's not something I've been following very closely. I mean, yes, this is true. Brandon Sanderson is a Cosmere content creator. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to pronounce anything dead, but I will say this. Can I say this? I can say this, right? It's my anniversary, okay? You had the OGL, and like vultures to a stumbling form, all these games came slithering out of the woodwork, okay? And, Draw Steel, DC-20, Cosmere, Daggerheart. They all just like, launched Kickstarters, did tremendously well or whatever. And by and large, I'm just going to say, by and large, I'm going to say, they fumbled the bag like fucking hard. Okay? Hard. Even in cases where they got a lot of success, like Daggerheart, okay? That success, I think, is a fraction of the success that they could have gotten. I think they all fumbled. I think they all fumbled the bag, Cal. I think they all fumbled it. All of them. Cosmere, so many ways. Just failing to get market penetration, failing to work with creators, failing to market to their audience, failure to get into places, failure to get their game out there and make it stick and make it notable. It's like they all just like, I don't want to call it a crap. I don't want to call it a cash grab, because it's not. Right? These are legitimate creators who try to make a game, super, and that they're super passionate about. Shadowdark is excluded. Shadowdark is excluded. Because if you go to a local game store, if you go, at least even around here, there are people running Shadowdark games. And again, some of my information is anecdotal, but remember, I talk to a lot of people. I've been to 5 or 6 conventions this year, right? I talk to a lot of people. And I think Shadowdark and the Borg, the pirate board game, maybe.
Congrats on 5 years, buddy. Glad to be a part of the community and support someone who knows their shit.
Thank you, Donnie. I love you so much, buddy. Donnie's been with us since nearly the very beginning. Donnie, sources are unclear, but some people may say that Donnie may have destroyed certain campaigns. One of my favorite stories, by the way, of Donnie is Donnie played with us in our Poppet Christmas Carol adventure. And in the final thing where the Poppets are killing Santa Claus, there was a % chance that Rudolph could appear, and Rudolph hadn't appeared, and Santa was going down pretty hard. And Donnie, as a player, tipped for the naughty list to make something bad happen to the game that he was being the player in. And that triggered Rudolph. And then Rudolph bust in through the Santa's cottage and joined the fight. But that was one of my favorite moments on this channel ever, is when Donnie tipped against himself just to make it, not only to give me money, but also to make it funny and harder for himself, which is great. I don't want to be clear here. I want to be clear here. I think these creators are extremely passionate, well-intended, and in some cases, maybe very, very, very talented. I'm simply saying that they did not do a good enough job of getting their game into the hands of people and making it stick. Now, you might say, oh, Derek, what were they supposed to do? I don't know. I don't own a game company. I don't pay marketers. I don't do that. That's not what I do. I don't know. So, but I do know, like Black Lodge is saying, that you go to a convention, there are a ton of people playing Shadowdark. There's a ton of people playing Pirate Borg. In some ways, I think Pirate Borg is bigger than Morkborg. I mean, much bigger. So there are games that have managed to stick. And I think other ones are going to come and they're going to go. So, and this is true. But to be clear, Shadowdark, Kelsey would tell you, in fact, Kelsey has told me that she benefited very, 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 very greatly from the OGL crisis. There's no doubt about that. There's just no doubt about that. In fact, she freaked out because of what was happening. She completely redid Shadowdark because she didn't, she thought they were going to banish the OGL, and the original thing was all done in the OGL. So she had to completely redo it, So yeah, and basically it's like, it's like any sort of sport, right? Your enemy, your villain, your enemy, your opposition makes a mistake, and that is your opportunity to capitalize on that. But if you don't capitalize on it, eventually your enemy's going to, they're going to recover. The adversary is going to make some adjustments in their secondary, and they're going to be able to adapt. And that's what Wizards of the Coast was able to do. Well, no, I mean, Steven, most of what Steven says to me is promptly ignored because, you know, I haven't become a successful business person yet. Oops. But, you know, no, it's not even about with Steven. It's just about my observation as someone who follows this stuff very closely. It's just, and going into these places and seeing all this stuff, you know. Yeah, I think Vintage Zebra says it best. They didn't stoke the fire of their fandoms and they didn't hype up their release. They just, you know, they let it release and kind of just said, oh, they'll figure it out. They'll find it on their own. I don't know. They just didn't do it. I look at some of these groups, like, you know, like Shadow Dark is at every convention and they've got this massive crew and they've got the Lurking Fears people and they are running hundreds of games and they are out there and they are pushing at these conventions and they are making themselves known and they are getting booths and they are talking to people and they have this groundswell of support from the community, and the Pirate Board people are the same. But with a lot of these other groups and a lot of these other companies, it's like they are just not even there. You know, they're just not even there. I remember at Gen Con, Brotherwise, the people who do Cosmere, Brotherwise had their own room. And I went into the room and they had like a little side table with like an early mock-up of the Cosmere player book. Most of the room was dedicated to whatever board games that they also make, you know? And it, you know, they didn't have any like seminars and like talk with the Cosmere people and see what's going on. And it was bizarre. It was bizarre. And then MCDM wasn't even at Gen Con. They announced that their game was releasing like while we were at Gen Con. But they weren't there to talk about it and to build hype. They weren't there to sit down with, you know, like it was strange. So I found it very strange that these people don't seem to like, I don't know. They just don't care about their game. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to know anything. And again, this is all anecdotal. I mean, I'm not like I'm not in possession of of a copious amount of market research or any of this other stuff. So yeah, I mean, that's actually a pretty good topic, Kadrissa. You know, maybe, but I do see a lot of younger people playing it. You know. Sure. Yeah, fine. Yeah, that's fair. Publishers should, I mean, somebody who is responsible for the actual, you know, pushing of the game, right? I mean, yes, game designers shouldn't be, they're not paid for that in some ways, right? Like, and the game designer might not even necessarily work for the publisher directly. So yes, I think that's probably better to say publishers should be cultivating communities. I don't know. I think a lot of publishers are cheap, is what it really comes down to. I think a lot of publishers are cheap. And I don't think that they want to put any money into these games. And, you know, but that's the thing, Black Lodge. I will forgive an indie, like a truly indie game, you know. But if you're like, you know, one of these companies that I'm talking about, like, you know, whether you are coming from an established company or you got a Kickstarter that made you millions of dollars, I think you got to put up or shut up at a certain point. You know, there's only so much excuses that you can do, you know. Right. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't think MCDM is indie. You know, I don't think it's two people either. Where did the channel name come from? Well, Rivener, it came from the idea that at the time, you know, we played until the last call, right? And we also, part personally, I think part of the reason that Bob wanted this game thing to happen was because he wanted an excuse to be able to leave the house and drink. And so there was kind of an idea that we had this beer of the week when we first started the channel. So every week we would have a new beer of the week. And if you watch some of our earlier episodes, you will see that a good number of our players basically, now I would have a beer of the week. Many of my players would have the beers of the week, then whatever else they brought with them, plus whatever else was in the refrigerator. And so I think that a lot of people, or a lot of my players, kind of took it as an excuse to just drink. And so originally our channel had a very strong drinking thing. So again, it had to do with drinking. So last call, but the idea too of being like, again, that we're knights of the last call, where we are here until the end, right? We're do or die is kind of what it comes down. It is not a reference to the Knights of Last Wall, as some people have thought. That is just a coincidence. Let's see here. I mean, I love Colville. I've been a patron of his for almost 3 years. I've given him hundreds of dollars. I think, I mean, I don't agree with 100% of what he says. I think he's a little too railroady at times for my tastes. But yeah. Correct. It was not a Pathfinder reference. Right. Well, the thing about Tuesday Night Games is like Alan and Sean have been running community games and building stuff up for a very long time. You have to remember that Mothership is their first successful RPG, but Tuesday Night Games has been publishing mostly social deduction games like World Championship Russian Roulette and Two Rooms and a Boom for like more than a decade. So they have a lot of experience building communities. And long before they were Tuesday Night Games, I used to run in sort of fun mega community games created and run by Alan and Sean. So, cause they're from Ohio. So we go way back, not way back, but we go fairly well back. And they're really good at community outreach, and they're really good at community building. And if you know anything about Two Rooms and a Boom, you know that they were working that in the convention scenes for years before they finally officially released it. And even then, they weren't really truly massively successful until Mothership, Well, that's the thing, C-Cal, is it started off with me getting more frustrated with them getting more drunk. And then it started off with I stopped drinking because whenever I drink even a single beer, I get really burpy. For whatever reason, I get really like, I get kind of burpy, gassy. And it's just not good on the mic. And I do a lot more talking than my players. So I stopped drinking the beer as much. And then we kind of changed out some of our players, people who didn't drink as much. Well, they didn't drink beer. So anyways, it's kind of been a gradual progression away from that as well. It was really cool though. Like in the beginning, some of our earliest patrons and stuff and some of our earliest supporters used to send us in local craft beers, like a sixer from their local craft brewery, and we would display it on the show. That was a lot of fun. That was actually really, really cool. And it was a cool way to, not use the stream as an excuse, or the show as an excuse to drink. So, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say it was pure alcoholism, but there was too much drinking going on in the early thing. And I kind of brought the hammer down. And again, that might've been part of the reason why people started not showing up, because they were like, hey, this was fun. And it was a cool opportunity for me to go out with my buddies. And, instead of going to the bar or instead of going to the bowling alley, I would go to the studio, and we play games, and I'd drink, my beers. And now Derek is being like, you need to be professional, and you're sloppy drunk, and you're like falling out of your seats, and you can't even remember, what your passive perception score is. So I was being kind of a tyrant in that way. Right. And then he stopped producing the Arcadia zines. So what's the deal with that? Right. Well, that's the good Kid Drissa. I'm there. I want to start painting again for sure. For sure. If players go around a counter, just add more monsters to it to balance it to their victories. Matt, Railroad Colville. Yeah, I just fundamentally don't agree with that style of GMing for sure. All right, tap out for the night. Mecha Maze, thank you so much. I look forward to how it's made. That's fantastic. My favorite video this week is a 17-hour plus review of a bad video game. It currently has 234,000 views. Long-form content will never die. Well, if YouTube has their saying, it certainly would. What's up, Neo Anomaly? Good to see you. Yeah, Beer of the Week was fun. I enjoyed doing it. And again, it worked really well when we just had, one beer, But some people took it a little bit too far, Exactly. Exactly, Jonathan. Exactly. I am picky, on the other hand. Oh, neat. Just says a bunch of the people who produced the Arcadia moved on to make the Horizons zine. I worked on their first issue. Yeah, Arcadia was great. I thought it was really neat. Yeah, 2 beers. Plus, it depends on the type of game. Like, the problem is I was playing with a group of players who were playing Pathfinder 2 and had barely any idea of how to play Pathfinder 2, and then they were drinking on top of it. Okay? Now, if you contrast this with Bob's Birthday Bash, which is not publicly available, it's only for our patrons, but in Bob's Birthday Bash, we were playing not Dungeon World, we were playing World of Dungeons, which is a half-page hack of Dungeon World written by John Harper. It is an extremely simple game with literally one rule, one move, right? In that game, people were getting completely smashed, and yet it had almost no impact on the game's ability to be played, right? So, yeah, that was fine. It is a sloppy, sloppy mess. But it was a fun night. It was a fun night. For sure. Again, I love, it's unfortunate. It is unfortunate that I love running games. I love talking about GMing. I love so much of this hobby, but people do not, by and large, want to learn how to GM. By and large, I don't know why, but they don't. They really don't. It's not something that people, they say they're interested in it, but those videos don't do particularly well with us. It's very interesting. Maybe people people might prefer playing. That could be a big reason. I mean, it's definitely a problem in the hobby, right? We talked about this on Roll for Combat before, where Mark had done some kind of investigating, and he went into several of the largest sort of Discord, find a group, and like the ratios were like 30-1, 40-1, in terms of players to GMs. You have so many people who are like, play. You run game for me. Run game, run. And yeah, I mean, that's a problem. And, look, yes, the How to Be a Great GM had to close his channel because nobody was interested in that kind of advice. I don't agree with that, Zelwood. I think there are absolutely principles, and I think there are absolutely things that you can learn and get better. I fundamentally disagree that you can't learn to GM. I think playing a game solo is a good way to learn GMing, but I think the best way to learn how to GM is to be an active and engaged player with a GM who is working with you collaboratively. But yeah, I mean, actual plays, look, I'm not going to fault anybody who doesn't watch our actual play. You know why? Now, again, we haven't done an actual play in almost 2 years. Why don't I fault anyone who doesn't? Because I don't watch actual plays because, quite frankly, I think everyone's terrible. Whenever I watch anybody play, whenever I watch anybody do actual play, I either feel like I'm like, this is far too contrived and way too try hard, or I'm like, you guys are like watching paint dry. And there's never anybody that is quite in the middle. Now, again, I'm sort of biased, but I actually do think Knights of the Last Call is, some of our shows is somewhat in the middle, right? We're a group of players who know what we're doing, and we don't have the consistency of wet tapioca, but we're also not like, trying to be like, of course, darling, of course I'll go with you to the frog ball. And that's where my, whatever, some of these people just try so hard to just ham it up so much with their just super over the top cringy behaviors. And, this is me saying that I think sometimes the professionals who are legitimately good at this are cringe. Those are watchable. I wouldn't fault you for watching that. But when you watch people who are clearly not good at this and they are trying to do that, they are trying to be Critical Role and they are not Critical Role, that's when it like reaches a level of cringe that I can't even stomach it. Like one thing that you might learn about me, I am very uncomfortable with secondhand embarrassment. I cannot watch, prank videos or, like videos where people get pranked or hurt or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I can't do it. Like, I know other people find it really funny or that like this is a very popular type of video and a very popular type of entertainment. I can't watch it. I hate watching other people be in an embarrassing state. And like, I just can't watch it. So I don't, I don't. So like, as an example, on our Root actual play, we wore costumes as like a form of the chat punishing us. And it was more like, hey, if you guys tip enough, I will force these guys to be in a costume. And we understand that it's embarrassing and it's dumb. But we are doing it. We are in on the joke. That's the key. The key is we are in on the joke. Okay. So yeah, it's interesting. Roll for Combat. Roll for Combat says, I also hate watching other people be embarrassed. Yes. So, so the joke is we're not wearing those costumes legitimately. And we're not wearing those costumes right now. Bob Smith, after Root, Smith goes, we're packing stuff up and Smith goes, oh, you can burn that, to the raccoon costume. Smith goes, you could burn that. He's like, that thing is so gross. He's like, why would anyone ever wear that again? And Bob is like, whoop, and like takes it. And now he just wears it. Anytime he needs to wear a costume, Bob just wears the fox costume from Root. It's hilarious. But there you go. Rock the socks. Oh, I'll turn off movies. Yeah, movies I'm not as bad with, but I even movies or TV shows, I don't like it when people are being, made fun of or embarrassed in that way. I'm just not a big damn. I'm just not. It's not my damn. Jams TV says, yeah, on my channel, we are the paint drying style. Well, Jams, at least you own it. At least you own it. I tried to watch Age of Umbra, Lion's Head Gaming. I was really interested in Daggerheart, and I really wanted to watch it, and oh boy, couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. Tried to watch it. Couldn't do it. Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, what I say to people is that in order to be on my channel, or for actual plays, I was like, I usually want someone who is good at the game, right? Has a good screen presence, communicates well, knows how to use their microphone, is comfortable, is funny, or is very, beloved or lovable. And I go, I don't need you to be all four of those. I need you to be like two to three of those. Like if a character's really good, if someone's really good at the game and they're really funny, that's enough. Like you could be good on my show. If you have really good mic etiquette and technique and you're really good at being, zingy and witty and coming up with ideas, but you're not particularly funny and you're not really good at the game, that's fine. You could be on my show. But it's tough. It's tough finding people, for people. I didn't know that you didn't have I didn't know that you had a actual play of Quest for the Frozen Flame. Now there's a weird part of me that wants to go and find that just so I can compare notes. Well, it's interesting, King Hodop. I have no idea. And the reason is because during the Torchbearer campaign, I literally was not thinking of that in the context of an actual play, right? We were just playing and I hit record. And what I'm describing there only applies to televised content, not to people just playing the game. Well, we made it to the end of the first adventure, and then I said I can't do it anymore. Sorry, Paizo. That's a great question. I think we kind of forgot about that, laughing out loud. And then I had some travel, and then I got sick. Then I had travel, and then because I went to Gen Con, Vegas, PAX, then I got sick. So at some point, we do need to do it. Yeah, we did not. Well, that's fair. Yeah, I had a lot of fun. Playing Torchbearer. I mean, it wasn't for everybody. I got a chance to meet up with Tundalus of Trespasser fame at PAX, and he said, hey, listen, I just want you to know, like, I had a lot of fun, and you're a great GM, but I was really surprised that I just bounced super hard off of Torchbearer. It was so different than what I thought it was. It was so procedural, and it was just not what I expected. And he's like, "But I hope that wasn't a reflection on you." I said, "No, of course not." I go, "I would never think it's a reflection on me." But it's not for everybody. Hodop. It's a weird type of game. It's a weird type of game that I think a lot of people, I think that's a good way to put it. It's very polarizing, and I think that's true of a lot of Burning Wheel HQ games. Exactly, right? Half love it, half hate it. That's fantastic. Torchbearer sucks. I have no idea. I didn't watch. I think, would you hate it? I don't actually know, Vin. I don't know. I don't know if you'd hate it or not. I think you would hate it. I don't know. Probably. We're definitely doing those. Rivener. We're definitely doing those. For sure. Right. Like someone might say, "Oh, this is a fine wine. It's been aged for 30 years." And then you drink it and you go, this is terrible. So we're definitely going to do that. In fact, in theory, I've just been really sick, so I haven't been able to do the prep I need to do. But we may have to just fuck it. We'll do it live, and everything won't be ready. But that's okay. Whatever. I don't care anymore. No one watches this shit anyways. Wednesday, Bob and his brother and Tim are supposed to come over to play the One Ring. So, and that's going to be my first time GMing. So, that game. which is good because they, get some reps. But independent of those guys coming over, and we're going to be doing the starter set probably over 2 sessions. But independent of that, as we get into the holiday season, we're gonna be kicking off the Moria play. The main thing is I got to figure out with you guys. Right. Well, last Wednesday did not work out. What was the problem last Wednesday? Oh, Bob was sick last Wednesday. And then, well, 2 Wednesdays ago. And then this Wednesday, last Wednesday, I should say, I was at PAX, and then I was sick. Yeah. But anyways, that'll be a lot of fun. I'm interested in playing it. But the main problem is, when other people are getting ready to play their actual play, like here's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at is it cheaper should I just buy 100 or 250 feet of Cat 5e cable and then just buy a crimper and just cut cable length of Ethernet cable, custom length? And is that cheaper / worth my time? Or should I just buy, 15-foot and 20-foot pre-made runs so that I can connect all my cameras up through my switch so that I can remotely control my cameras and focus rack them and stuff remotely? I actually don't think other people do this stuff on their actual plays. I think they just set up a $100 webcam and then they hit record, and it doesn't matter because no one's going to watch it. Just like how it doesn't matter what I do, no one's going to watch it. But just because no one is going to watch it doesn't mean that I am not, happy, or that I'm happy putting a subpar product out there. That is disturbing that you have a C920. Get a better webcam. So for example, instead of, Black Lodge wants to know, what kind of cameras am I using that have Ethernet control? That's a great question. This is my cameras that I use in my studio. This is a Blackmagic Micro Cinema Studio 4K G2. It's an SDI output. It's a SDI output camera, but it can be controlled over this Ethernet port, which connects to the USB-C port, and you control. This is the power barrel. But it's a locking power barrel. It's a locking SDI. It's a locking USB-C, and then this goes to a switch, which I control with an API. That I kind of modified / downloaded from GitHub. So, yeah. Anyways, that's my cameras here in the studio. Now, this camera is an EOS R5, but my studio cameras that I use, that I have 5 of, are Blackmagic designed Micro Studio 4K G2s. But you can basically just set up static IP. I just have a switch and a network router, and I plug it into my PC, and then I can access it. Actually, I can access it via a web interface, and then I have the IPs set, and then I can just click on it, and then I can control focus, white balance, magenta, green shift, zoom, aperture, shutter speed, shutter angle. I can do a little bit with LUTs. I can do some stuff with contrast. I can turn up the ISO. So I can control almost all of that. Anyways. But see, this is my point. It's like as a YouTuber, okay, I have learned so much more. I mean, to be fair, I was a photographer before this, but my process is so much more involved than just being like, I need to learn a new system and run it for my friends. Exactly. There's so much. Well, I will say this. there's so much behind good content creation. And I will also say that 90% of it here's the thing. It's like, it doesn't matter until it matters completely. It's weird. In some ways it doesn't matter at all, but there are other times where people pull up your thing and say, wow, that looks like garbage. And they'll just, just not give you the time of day. I'm actually in the process of changing stuff around right now. Like this is a new light source that I have right here. And the reason is because my old light source was always kind of like a temporary step in, but it was really big, like really big, huge. Well, that's fine because I was the only person here. But now if I'm going to start having people over to be in my studio in order to play games, I can't have this massive, huge softbox taking up a bunch of room because it'd get knocked over and all this other stuff. So I actually just recently replaced this. So I'm still kind of trying to figure out some of my new lighting situations. Which is funny because it's warmer. But the white balance in my camera might be off too. So like, again, you are correct to feel like there's something off with the light because these are new lights. So I used to light so this was my old key light, which was an Amaran 200X. So this is my old key light, but this is a chip on board light, which basically means it's a single point source that's really, really, really bright. And this was basically about, I don't know, 3 or 4 feet off to my left. And it shot into this thing, which is this massive, huge softbox, right? I mean, this thing is absolutely monstrous. And this is with the front cover off of it. So there was actually another front cover. So this is a way overkill for one person. But this is like the biggest softbox I had. But anyways, this takes up a lot of room. And now that I'm going to have people in my room, I can't have this space. So I've replaced it with a panel LED. Anyways. So I have to tweak some stuff here. I'm speaking the dark tongue. Ash nash grimbatur. Ash nash kripatur. Seriously though, Derek, we need to do the RC segment where you fix Mark and I's setups. Well, step 1 is money. Step 2 is fixing it. I mean, this stuff, I mean, it costs money. Unfortunately, it's expensive, Oh, snap. What's that purpose of that big weird thing? Step 1 is always money. What is the purpose of that big weird thing? So that big weird thing is called a soft box. And the purpose of a soft box is to take a singular point of light and spread it out so that the light appears softer instead of hard. Take care, Laughing Out Loud. Good seeing you. Yeah. Like how clouds kill shadows. Yeah, basically. That's what it comes down to. This is Jess's offer. Okay, Derek, step 1, I'll come on your show and we'll collaborate on designing a dungeon and drawing a map for that dungeon. And one of the typicals will be, I need money for the camera that you tell me to buy. Well, that's fair enough. The lenses were basically more expensive than the cameras themselves. That is quite correct. Yeah. So yeah, because these cameras, these are micro four thirds mounts, and this camera does not come with a lens. You have to buy the lens separately. So, soft box, spread it out. Yeah. Well, okay. No, I don't have any good ways to do it. But I was gonna say, like, if the light is hard, you will get very harsh, defined shadows. Like, if you look at my forehead, you will see that there is a very soft transition from the shadow. The light is right here. You can see it on my hand, right? It's right here. But if you look at my forehead, the transition to the shadow is very soft, right? You don't see like a hard, dark line between shadow and not shadow. And so that is because my light is large and close by. And in order to make my light large, I have to use, yeah. So for example, yes, if we, this might work actually. Right. This is a, so like, right. That's like a very hard light where it's like, it's a much more steep transition between darkness and light. It's not really good because my phone doesn't work that well, but now the only reason that there's light hitting this side of my face is because I have a fill light going on the opposite side of my face, which is providing, like, if I didn't have that light, then this side of my face would be very, very, very dark. Here we go. I'm sorry it's so boring. So now, to be perfectly clear, I don't think anyone needs, the camera that I have is exceptionally overkill for live stream. I just use it because, right, correct. I just use it because it was literally my camera that I had. And I don't use my camera for anything else anymore because I'm no longer a professional photographer. So I just use that. But that being said, there is a quality difference, that can be found in the quality and aperture of your light. Derek After Dark, the real stuff. Oh, well, yeah, that is also a valid a prospect there as well. Pretty colors. You prefer the fill light only? It was fun. Yes, you can definitely get away with a reasonably decent camera. A couple $100 for a webcam. But I recommend that you get a good audio interface. Right? People can, well, number one, a lot of people, especially for my content, they don't even watch. They just listen. So it doesn't matter as much. And I started on the Shure SM7B, which a lot of people do. But I found that I didn't like how boomy and bassy it made my voice. My voice is already kind of boomy and bassy. So that's why I use this this Electro Voice RE20, which is another industry staple. You don't see it as often as the Shure SM7B, but the RE20 is an industry staple in its own right, for sure. And it doesn't have the boominess and the low end grumble that the Shure does have as well. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a personal preference thing. I don't even know where my Shure is. I think it's like in a box or something like that. I should probably just sell it, but yeah, a Sony Alpha camera, very solid for sure. There's a lot of good stuff here. Give it to Mark. Well, so here's the problem. The problem is, if you give somebody a microphone, then they go, okay, cool, and they're like, okay, what do I do with it? And I'm like, oh, plug it in. They're like, how do I plug it into the USB? And I go, oh, it doesn't plug into the USB. It's an XLR microphone. So you need a USB audio interface. And then the quality of your USB audio interface is in some ways just as important as the quality of your microphone. Because, you know, if you put a big piece of garbage fire between your really good computer and your really good microphone, it's going to sound like shit, because you need an audio interface that can convert the analog signal from your microphone into a digital signal. Yeah, the A7 series is great. A7 II, A7 IIIs, the Sony lenses, the G Masters are really, really good. You know, it's fine. Yeah, I mean, oh yeah, this microphone, the RE20. I mean, this thing's been around since I think the 50s. It's a pretty old technology, for sure. Let me see here. Okay, never mind. It's all wrapped up. I was going to show you what a cloud lifter looks like, because if you have a Shure SM7B, you also probably need a cloud lifter because of gain staging, and most preamps aren't good enough to give the microphone the gain that it needs in order to work. Anyways, the point is, there's a lot of people who go out and buy a Shure SM7B, and then they wonder why it sounds like shit. And the reason it sounds like shit is because you bought a really expensive mic that needs a ton of driving gain. They buy a cheap audio interface that can't provide the gain. And, you know, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, whatever, you know, I mean, like, so it's fine. Yeah, don't get me wrong. There are absolutely, you know, preamps out there that can push an SM7B for sure. They're for sure. Yeah, Zoom makes everything, you know, mine sounds like shit because we keep using Zoom and I hate you. Well, that makes sense as well. I mean, there was a time when we originally did Zoom calls where I separately recorded. We used Zoom for the video, and then we separately recorded the audio through either Clean Feed or through Zencaster, including Zencaster, which I used to pay monthly for, because Zencaster would allow for local recordings via WAV file. And then after the, say, you know, not really good for live streams, but for pre-recorded stuff, after the stream was over, that locally recorded WAV file would then get uploaded via FTP. So then I could get a locally sourced WAV file from each of the participants from the call. Kid Drissa wants to know, what audio interface am I using with my RE20? I am using a Claret 8 Plus Pre. And when you look this thing up, you are going to realize that it is way overkill, because it's just me. But it's the audio interface I use from, you know, when we had like 6 people on the show. So yeah, Clean Feed was good, but then they completely changed their business model, and it was really shitty and horrible of them. So yeah, I agree. Correct. You do a lot of work just to make it sound good, and then even then it's like, is it really worth it? I don't know. Well, see, yeah, you say this, okay, but look, I'm going to be snobby here. I'm allowed to be snobby a little bit. Sometimes part of the reason that I don't like playing online is because people look and sound like a potato. And, you know, yeah, I guess maybe I'm being snobby, but I think some people are just like, it's fine. I can look like I can have 16-bit resolution, and, you know, my audio sampling rate can be like 24 hertz or whatever. Like, I don't know. I think it sounds like garbage, and it looks like garbage. And this is not a VTT thing. Like, when I was working the last couple of years, and I remember when I would get onto a meeting and the people would be like, wow, that looks so, you know, you look so good. That looks so great. And I'm like, you are all making, you're all making $150,000 a year. You all work remotely. 100% of the time, invest a little into your setup, learn a little bit. Like if you're going to work 100% from home, I don't know, maybe look a little bit better. I don't know. I don't know why people, again, I'm being a snob here, but it's like, I don't know why people want to look like, they're FaceTiming on an Apple IV, or like a video from like a Samsung Razr, or a Razr phone, just like, yeah. So, is that the one that looks like a rack mount server? Yes, it is. That is correct. Right. Not to say nothing of the fact that if you buy it for work, number one, you could probably write it off. Or number two, you should probably get your company to pay for it, especially if you do any kind of presenting, any kind of meeting with clients, But again, I'm just being, I'm being snobby. But it used to bother me because I was just like, ugh, you look crap. Calls into meetings dialed from their phone. Like I get sometimes, you have to do what you have to do. But the thing is like back when I used to work at, a long time ago, and I worked in insurance, like very rarely did people work remotely. And so when someone did call in or whatever, it's fine. But if that's your everyday experience, it's like, I don't know. Again, I'm being a snob. I'm being an audiovisual snob, and that's okay. I can be an audiovisual snob. I'm putting on my inner Ben. Correct. Right. You get a Focusrite Scarlett, like, 2i2 or whatever. You get an Audio-Technica 2020, or you get like, I think the Rode Pod mic sounds really, really good. And a nice, simple, cheap desk mountable mic arm to help keep knocks and bumps and whistles. And you're in for $300, $250. And yeah, I get it. Like that's not nothing. But you're going to sound way better. No, I think Elgato makes relative. I think you overpay with Elgato, but I think that they do. I think they do make good stuff. So, yeah. I mean, we're kind of in a weird. We're in a weird gray area there. USB mics are getting better. Like that's for sure. Sure. They have the I think they have an SM7B now that's USB, maybe. I don't know. But still. Yeah, the MV7. That's it. Yeah. Yeah, Rode is one of my favorite companies of all time. And I will never say anything bad about them. We started our original audio interface was the Rodecaster. The Rodecaster Pro was our original audio interface, and a bunch of Rode Pod mics. So, and I use their lavs, their remote Bluetooth lavs for when I'm remotely traveling or whatever, going to cons and doing interviews and the like. I have a bunch of their what is it? The Pro 2 line or whatever. So they're great. Rode is a fantastic company, and they are really great with like customer service and helping you out and talking to you and just everything. Right. I don't think so the SM7DB, which is a really clever name, by the way. Correct. Basically it is not USB, Vin, but it is basically them going, okay, we probably should, we should probably make our microphone not require a Fed head or a cloud lifter. And so at least they did that, But again, it is what it is. And to be clear, we have tried many different audio solutions on this channel when we've done live. For fact, assuming we can play Wednesday, assuming I'm feeling better, we will have yet a new audio attempt going down, which is going to be that we are going to be using professional broadcaster headsets instead of dynamic microphones. Yeah, the shotgun microphone thing was a huge problem. So here's the problem. If Derek had his druthers, I don't know why my tripod is moving. I don't know why it's going. Anyways, if I had my druthers, if I had my druthers, I would probably pick up. Let's see if I can capture this here. Okay, this would be the microphone that if you're going to have so here's the thing that people don't understand. Shotgun microphones are really bad to be used indoors. Now, I discovered this too late, like most people. But they are really not what you should be using indoors, full stop. And so what you don't want is a shotgun microphone. What you want is this microphone right here. Okay, the Sennheiser MKH50. Okay, a small diaphragm condenser microphone. This microphone is the microphone that you want to have mounted just out of view above the talent's head, right? So if it was me, it would be like right here, right? But if I had a bunch of people, I would need 3 or 4 or 5 of these things. But this is what you actually want, which is a small diaphragm cardioid condenser microphone. But unfortunately, as you can see, it is ridiculously expensive. But the MKH50 is amongst the goated of goat tiers. I mean, there's some ones that are better than this one, but in terms of believe it or not, for the juice for squeeze, this is pretty much about as good as it gets in terms of this. But this would work, but it would be so expensive. Have I thought about buying it before? Of course I have, but take care, Nawi. Take care, Nawi. It was nice having you stop by. Yeah, something like that, Duncan. I'm a crazy person, and I like to have a single audio source for each person because that way I can audio EQ each source individually. So there's that. So yeah, I like Focusrite. I think Focusrite makes good stuff for sure. Yeah, I think headsets will be worth a try for a couple of reasons. Thank you, Erica. Really appreciate it. Erica is a founder and also one of our true night representers because she wore her Knights of Last Call merch every day at PAX. Well, every day that I saw her, anyways. So shout out to Erica, and she brought me cookies at the booth. So double shout out to Erica. But what was I saying? Oh, right. One of the things that is nice about recording versus recording a show rather than doing it live is if I record it live or if I record it, then what I can do is when I'm audio mixing it, I can turn off everybody's microphones and turn on other person's microphone. But when I'm doing it live, I can't do that. I know, Hodop. I know. I'm sorry. You and 5 other people. I'm very backed up. I apologize, Hodop. Take care of the man from Nan. Good seeing you. I'm actually going to be dipping off myself here. We managed to go for 2 hours, and that's going to be good enough for me. I don't want to overdo it, especially since I'm hoping to play on Wednesday. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah. That sounds very painful. Yeah. We tried doing lavs too, Duncan. We did lavs. We did overhead shotgun mounts, mics. We obviously did dynamic mics right in front of our faces. Now, to be clear, this right in front of somebody's face is going to be the best sounding experience, full stop. And it's great for a podcast where we're just sitting around. But when we're actually trying to play the game, when we're trying to roll dice, when we're trying to lean over to grab someone's mini or move something on a battle mat, working with this thing is a pain in the butt. And it's tough, and people can go off axis, and then you lose the sound really quickly. So I want to keep the table clear. So that's why for our new series that we're gonna it's gonna be Daggerheart, everybody's gonna be rocking these, which are Audio Technica BPHS 2. Audio Technica BPHS 2. Yeah. So we're rocking these. So these are going to be our new microphones that everyone's going to be rocking. We're using the double ear version. And plus, my players have actually told me they like hearing themselves in the microphones. They actually find that to be, it kind of puts them more into the game, which is kind of interesting, So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Assuming I'm feeling well enough to have everybody over. But so any case, I just want to say thank you to everybody. I wanted to hop on even though I was sick, so I appreciate you sticking with me through my very nasally sounding voice, as I am still trying to recover from this cold. But it's been 5 years, and when I started this channel, I was not working. I had a business that was failing. And now I'm not working anymore either. So, we're right back where we started, and this time though, instead of the channel costing me thousands of dollars a month, it's making me thousands of dollars a month. Now, we're trying to do what we can to turn that into a career. Certainly no one should complain about making a few $1,000s a month after, just talking about RPGs with some of your close buds. But where can we take this channel that doesn't lose what makes it magical, that keeps everybody like you engaged and still makes it a really, fun process. Side project progress check. Well, considering that in the last couple weeks, I've been traveling and then sick, the answer is nowhere. It has gone nowhere. Of course it hasn't. Let's see. Mega Dungeon. I don't think we've done a video in like 3 weeks. Daggerheart Digest. I think the problem with Daggerheart Digest is that nobody wants content for Daggerheart. Number one, everybody that's making content for Daggerheart is making it for free, and they're just putting it on like Daggerheart's Bleeding Hearts. I don't remember what it's called. But by and large, Reddit is full of people just putting up their Daggerheart content. What people seem to want for Daggerheart is adventures. That's what they want. So the number one thing that people want for Daggerheart is the number one thing that Daggerheart isn't supposed to have, is designed to not work with, and in fact, in some cases, is fundamentally, opposed to what the whole concept of the game is about. That seems to be the number one thing that people want for Daggerheart. Strangely, not only do people want adventures, but a lot of people seem to really want one-shots. Like the idea that they're actually going to be playing this game is, as like an ongoing adventure doesn't seem to really exist. Although I would probably say that the number one thing people want is one-shots. The number two things that people want are adventure pass levels 1 to 10. Yes, the Lancer update is I got sent a bunch of rules that were made by members of the Patreon community to try to make Lancer work without probably upsetting too many people. I still don't know where we're going to run it, how we're going to host it, who's going to play it, are we going to have enough GMs? None of these things have been figured out, but people are so enthusiastic about it. I'm inclined to just say, fuck it. We'll launch it and see what happens. I have nothing to lose there. Yes, I do think that there is a ton of people on Demiplane. I think there's a ton of people who are on Demiplane who, because they don't know any better and they don't know that Demiplane is fucking terrible. And of course, Demiplane only integrates with Roll20, and Demiplane only integrates with Roll20 in a very haphazard, shitty way. And of course, Demiplane doesn't support basically any house rules at all. So I think the fact that it's not that not being on Demiplane is a killer. It's just that Demiplane doesn't want people to be on there. This is also probably true. People want adventures for Daggerheart is closely related to the people don't want a GM problem. The other problem that Daggerheart has is, I'm not going to get into it, but TLDR, like everyone's playing Daggerheart wrong. And it's kind of it's their fault, but it's also kind of the game's fault. And yeah, anyways, so there's that. Let me think about this. Shadow Dark is really cool, but the problem with Shadow Dark is it is a tremendous amount of work to do. Designing, like, there's a reason. Okay. I'm just going to say this. There's a reason why, a lot of, up and at 'em, go get 'em content creators and all this other stuff, and why, like, the OSR is like, oh, we're championing the one-page dungeon, we think that is the superior form of it. No, it's because it's fucking easy to make. It's cheap, it's quick. You could turn that shit out in like a weekend. You're designing what, 5, 6, 7 encounter areas, maybe at most. They barely have any rules, You just throw it together on a map. You make it isometric, and people go, or you get, you get your cartography done by Dyson Logos, and everybody goes, oh, wow, this deserves an any. It's like, okay, cool, I guess. It's like the idea that like something could actually have like depth and structure and length is just like anathema to people anymore. And I don't know if it's because that's what people want, or if it's because that's what, like maybe actually it's not the creator's problem. Maybe it's the consumer's problem, because they're just like, people are like, oh, I only want something like, look, you're basically asking me to watch a KLLC video. I only watch shorts, right? And I only want my dungeons in the form of shorts. If I can't play the entire dungeon in one session, what are we even doing here? So again, it's late and I'm getting cranky, but there's a lot of stuff here. Derek was trying so hard not to say bad things about Daggerheart. Yeah, I mean, look, I'll say it straight out. I don't think it's a thing. I think the players should manage the spotlight thing is a terrible idea. I think your games are going to be shit. And I see the biggest problem is that all these GMs are playing with players that they should just not be playing any games with, period. But there's so many people who've come to Daggerheart and they don't realize it or they don't recognize it, but their players are from this mindset of campaign as competition, that the GM, they're trying to beat the GM. It's just so problematic. And Daggerheart is just not even remotely equipped to handle it. And so then people are criticizing Daggerheart because, oh, my players they maintain the spotlight and then they just keep giving it to the one player who makes all the attacks. And it's like, yeah, you're playing with assholes, but it's not even their fault. They're just playing the way that they're always used to playing. Anyways, so one-page dungeons are bullshit the way they're sold. I love them, but don't fucking tell me that you do need to do a lot of work for them. And, I think they're really good for a low prep, no prep GM, because the hard part about low prep, no prep GMing is the map. So the giving you the map is a huge lift. A map and a little bit of ideas of what's where and why. Everything else, all the details and stuff, I could fill that in. I don't need boxed text. But for a lot of people, that is not what they want. They want the boxed text, And I think part of the reason is because of what Jams is saying. I think people are playing Daggerheart wrong because the players generally don't want to collaborate on the story, just like how people don't want to come up with their own. They want a pre-written story. And I think Jams is correct. Outercraft is right. They either want the mothership pamphlet that they're like, oh, this game has more than 3 rules. What are we even doing here, right? Or it needs to be, Pathfinder 2. Yeah, I mean, tricking people into doing stuff is always a time-honored trick, for sure. Yeah. So, that's true. No one's going to make it past the mic conversation. Zen Bullet, when you're right, you're right. Jam says, I've even asked my players to collaborate more, but I can't even get them to decide what they're going to do in the next campaign. They just want me to tell them what they're doing. Yeah. Derek After Dark. All right, there we go. We're high contrast now. No, it's downstairs. I was gonna say let me go get a mood light. All right, you know what? Hold on a second. It's worth it. It's worth it. There we go. Vin says yes. Let me get another one here. We'll do a dual fill here. HSI. Here we go. Get a nice orangey. There we go. All right. Fair enough. Yeah, so we're dark. All right. That looks good. I'm gonna go turn off the light. All right. Hey, we just got rated. Fantastic. Welcome everyone. 8 viewers coming in from Ticket Time Bomb. Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to have you here. Happy to have you. Wonderful for you to be there. Now this is KOLC. Thank you, Duncan.
Duncan DT tipped $3. Now this is Colk.
Oh yes. Now this is pod racing. Welcome to the After Dark session. Stay a while and listen. Here in the low, we can up. Well, we can up my boost the bass in my phone. We should be able to do that. Go to my filters. Go to my EQ. I'm gonna give it a little bit more bass. I'm gonna give it a little bit more low end. It's gonna sound a little bit more. It's gonna sound a little bit more deeper and quiet. KOLC also on Twitch. Well, welcome. You're on the air with Knights of Last Call. Tell me your worries, your problems, your hopes, your dreams, your fears. We're here all night for you. More deeper is shit grammar, Derek. Yes, we shit on grammar. Anyways, we finally got some mood lighting. We're going in here. We're going in deep. War historian watched a recent interview with Seth this weekend, and he said his players need to be spoon-fed the call to action as well. Well, if Seth Skorkowski is saying that, then the rest of us have no chance because Seth's like one of the GOAT of all times. I am curious though. I think PBTA can do both dungeons and adventures. So, what's the rub? Well, the rub, as you put it, is that in order for PBTA to work, you need to allow a lot of room for the players to sort of dynamically explore and create the environment around you. And if you lock them too heavily onto wheels, then you're kind of missing the whole point. I would argue you're missing the whole point of most games. So I don't think that has anything to do with PBTA, quite frankly. But I recognize that it is not realistic that you could design something, let's say for D&D, 3rd edition, 4th edition, 5th edition, or Pathfinder 2nd edition, that meaningfully gives the GM the tools that they need to be able to run encounters, particularly combat encounters, without either putting the players onto some sort of roller coaster ride or being so massive and so gigantic as to be impractical. But in theory, the advantage of PBTA and Daggerheart is that because the requirements for balance, for getting the encounter right, are so much lower, that you can be a lot more freeform with the way that your adventure is prepared. Literally preparing situations, right? Not plots. And you could just give the GM the setup. Okay. You've got the ancient merchants guild that are secretly vampires. You have the naval consortium they used to be pirates. And then you have, the rat men that live in the sewers, right? Those are the three factions that are, that are kind of in detente in your city that this adventure takes place. And then you have this inciting incident and enter the players, right? And now where we go from there, who knows, right? Maybe the players become allies with the rat men. Maybe the players become allies with the pirate merchants, or the pirates, or maybe they become allies with the vampires. Maybe they never learn that the merchant consortium is actually a bunch of vampires. So once you make an adventure that presumes these things, right, it's really problematic. And it's really hard to do that. The problem is that when people are used to these adventures, they don't want situations, right? They want the plots, right? They want the story, to be written out for them. And that way they go, and if you look at a lot of adventures, you'll see things like, it'll say like in the synopsis, right? Like especially a longer adventure, you'll see the synopsis where it'll say like, then later, after the players head to the secret elven encampment, and after a lengthy series of discussions, will impress enough of the elves that the elves will decide to come to the players' aid against their enemy, right? And like, there's all these baked in assumptions, because most adventures need some number of, convalescing points, right? Like a series of diamonds, because if you just branch forever, then it's going to become a massive problem for the author and for the GM, basically just for everybody, right? So that's the real root of the problem. And unfortunately, the GM goes, okay, but what do I do? My players decided to ally with the vampires. I don't know, like figure it out as a group. That's what's cool about role-playing games is discovery, truly discovering a story together as you're playing together. That to me is what makes the game so compelling and so fun. Let's see here. I missed a bunch of stuff here. King Hodop says, I think this is why I struggle so much with Daggerheart, is that I feel like it asks me to make so much of the world and story, or it asks me to make so much of the world and story in the hands of the players. Yeah, I think it does, honestly. I mean, I think doing low prep, no prep is really tough if, you're not passing the buck to the players. If the GM has to be responsible for figuring all of that out, then yeah, it's going to be pretty tough. I'm going to change the hue on this a little bit. I'm going to make it more. All right, there we go. Oh, my camera's trying to white balance. That's why it looks so weird. Well, right. The thing about campaign frames is campaign frames are literally just there to help you set up a campaign and get the ball rolling, I think it depends, Black Lodge Gaming, on why you're playing a role-playing game. If you're playing a role-playing game to focus on the narrative element, I think a counterbalance is a terrible idea. If you're playing role-playing games to focus on the simulationist element, I think in counterbalance is a terrible idea. If you're playing role-playing games to focus on the gamist element, then I think it's an absolutely essential component to the game. I think the problem is, one, many players and GMs have no idea why they're playing a role-playing game. And number two, I think many systems have no idea what kind of RPG system they are. So I do think that there's a bunch of problems at the heart of that. Yeah, I think, let me see if I can bring this up here. Dungeon World SRT. A lot of people don't, yeah, hold on a second. Let me bring this up here. A lot of people, when you're talking about Dungeon World, oh, thanks. Can I not? I don't want this. Reject all. Thank you. So one of the things that people forget a lot of times in Dungeon World is that, and again, Dungeon World was pretty much created alongside Apocalypse World, so it's basically about as old as Apocalypse World stuff. They talk about making different types of fronts, and one of the fronts is called a campaign front, but the other type of front is called an adventure front. Okay, and the whole point of an adventure front is basically it's an adventure. It's not the entire campaign. It's not the movers and shakers of the entire world. It's just the front for that particular quest or that particular adventure. And so that concept, that idea, can, I think, apply very easily to Daggerheart. I just don't think that that's what people want. That's all I'm saying. Good night, Kidrissa. Sorry, I missed you there. And I think Sir Trent here has a great point, which is newer GMs come in, they lack the scaffolding, they look to modules for guidance, they end up training them to do the wrong things, and then they need to be helped to develop their conflicts to improve and ad lib instead. I completely agree with that. Yeah. Go red, yellow, orange. You know what? Actually, that you say that, hold on a sec here. This light has a special effects. There we go. I think this should work. This is the... We can have a party. Ayo. There we go. It says this is the fire. Whatever that means. Oh, neat. Right. So, Wes, I think that you said that really well, which is, I'm definitely a gamist player. I want to engage with the mechanics and have a good time. If we tell a good story in the process, then that is just a bonus. And Wes, I don't think, number one, I don't think you're alone. And actually, I think a lot of people, are actually with you in that regard. I think a lot of that is with you in this regard. Inciting incident, is that like what a front is? No, a front is just basically an action plan for what would happen if the PCs didn't get involved. That's what I'm basically saying. But Vin is, as usual, right. If you just gave people maps and descriptions and fronts, they would riot because they would say, what am I supposed to do with this? I can't use this. Well, in theory, this is what Daggerheart is promising, right? Now, the game is only 6 months old, so it remains, it remains to be seen whether it can maintain and keep that promise. Now, King Hodop, between me and you, I think there is a game that has a satisfying mechanical experience and that creates, via that mechanical process, a satisfying narrative story. And I think you know which game it is. It's Torchbearer. That's just me. Mithras, obviously. Thank you, Smenden.
Smenden tipped $10. Congratulations on reaching 5 years of co-LC. Here's to many more.
Clearly it is Cosmere. Trespasser is actually the answer. Trespasser is great if you like that specific mix of style and games, Do I like Torchbearer more than Burning Wheel? I do, Animasmon. I do. Torchbearer specifically because it focuses on the things that I really enjoy about gaming. I love dungeons. I love dungeon crawling. And so a game about dungeon crawlers that also has narrative elements is really, really fascinating to me. So Torchbearer does something with the Burning Wheel engine that I think is really, really appealing to me. Well said, Sir Trent. There was a time when ludonarrative dissonance was all the rage. Jess says, I told Derek at PAX U about an adventure I wrote for a third-party publisher where they wanted an adventure that leveled the PCs from like 8 to 10 in only 5,000 words. So the only way I could fit all the content encounters they wanted was to create a map with random encounters, encounter areas, and a couple of set-piece encounters that carried a story. Unfortunately, this adventure got some pretty terrible reviews where people complained that it was just a map and encounters. The shit people want and expect from an adventure is wild. And I completely agree with Jess. I think what people want out of an adventure is crazy. And then when you look at like what adventures used to do, like in terms of, like what a module had, like B2. Exactly, Cal. I was gonna say I was trying to my brain got stuck for a moment. But yeah, if you think about like Keep on the Borderlands and what it has, it's like people would lose their mind and they're like, I don't understand it. How did you turn that into an adventure? And it's like, because I added elements, I added components to it. Like games that require the GM to be present, I think are awesome. Yeah, I love crunchy narrative games too, Outercraft. I agree that they do seem to be a rare breed outside of the Burning Wheel line. I agree. And I think it's because they're not very popular. Yeah, it's funny, Black Lots, because I think that was TSR's slogan, right? In the 80s, right? Products of your imagination or something, products of imagination. But I think you're right. I mean, say, could be for a bunch of different reasons. It could be because of, oh, Gen Z is terrible or whatever, but I don't know. Yeah. So, and again, oh no, that's what I'm saying, Black Lodge. I think people dismiss it as a Gen Z thing, and I don't think it's a Gen Z thing. I know plenty of older people who are, locked into that mindset. To be clear, right, I'm a weird person who plays role-playing games. All right. I've talked about this before. I don't care about characters. I don't care about my character in particular. I am there to I'm there to do great deeds. I am there to do legendary accomplishments. I am there to laugh hard. I am there to grin mightily. I am there to high five around the table. I am there to have an incredibly epic story when we're done. But I won't be able to tell you, the names of the characters involved. And to a certain extent, to me, they don't matter. And again, I've used this comparison before, but it's the prayer that Conan prays to Crom before the Battle of the Mounds. And he says, Crom, I've never prayed to you before. I have no tongue for it. No one, not even you, a god, will remember if we were good men or if we were bad men, why we fought, how we died. No. All that matters is that two stood against many. And that's kind of the way I think about D&D. I don't really care about your character. I care about the story that we're creating together. Now, obviously, Lord of the Rings is kind of a weird, different, separate matter because that is specifically a novel. But, if the purpose of a campaign is to watch your character become the king, then I lose a lot of interest in that because we're not discovering anything together. We're just going through the motions of watching your character do the thing that you said that you wanted them to do. And I find that to be very unfulfilling. I mean, you say that, King Hodop, but I don't know, I mean, unfortunately, at this point, if I ran Daggerheart, I think it would have to be with just like two people. I worry that I might be giving people the wrong idea when I run Daggerheart. Because I only ran it in the beta. But I can tell you that I probably run Daggerheart wrong. Slugmaster beats are cool. They're not for me, Outercraft. I'll say that. I think that, the game is very unapologetically about what it's about, and it's not trying to deceive you. But for me, that's not as interesting to me to see what beats you're going to come across and how we're going to hit them. That's just from my personal take. Well, what I mean is, I really don't care about the mechanics of Daggerheart. I'm glad that they're there, but I really don't care about them. If that makes any sense. I view it very much as like I'm running, a PBTA game. which is not necessarily the great thing. No, I do care about PBTA mechanics. I mean things like so like in PBTA, if somebody did something, okay, and there was a move, and that move triggers, then we must follow that move. Okay. And if the move doesn't trigger, then I'm just going to make something up and I'm going to do it. Now, I'm not saying that Daggerheart isn't that game. In fact, I think it is that game, but they don't really sell it like that in that way. So like if somebody tries to do something in Daggerheart and they don't have a power for it, if they have a power for it, great, use your power. But if you don't have a power for it, I'm just going to make a GM move. And I'm going to go, I don't know, pay 2 stress and kill all these minions. And someone might go, I can't believe Derek let this person pay 2. Like, okay. Imagine a scenario where I spend fear and I activate a bunch of minions. Let's just say a bunch of kobolds or something like that. Okay. And they swarm around some, warrior, rogue, badass melee character PC. And I swarm around them. I roll. I miss. I don't do any damage. Right. And so I describe that the PC's, basically flipping out and blocking all the attacks. And then I, Derek, doing something that is not officially what you're supposed to do in Daggerheart, says, okay, I'm going to pass the spotlight deliberately to you, Rogue Warrior, because I want to see what you do at this moment. And the Rogue Warrior goes, okay, as they're coming in, right? I'm going to just start going into like a whirlwind of knives and blades and slashing throats. And it's going to be like one of those cool moments where I move so quickly that like I hit them all and then they all like die as I, follow them. And then they roll their attack and they miss. And then technically they rolled a miss, right? And I'm going to go, okay, you failed. So that makes a GM move. And my GM move is going to be Rogue Warrior. Spend 2 stress and they're all dead. And the Rogue Warrior is going to be like, yeah, totally. And I'll be like, great, mark the 2 stress and let's describe how your character, the kobolds are tenacious and fighting and, it takes you longer than you'd think. And maybe a couple of them, get in there, but when it all's said and done, after a few brief moments of an amazing, awesome action movie collage montage, the last of the kobolds is dead and falls over. It is Zen Bullet. You're absolutely correct. Offer a cost is a move. You're correct. But the nature of the game, or at least I think the way that the people are approaching Daggerheart, is to feel like, kind of like what Lionhead's saying here, wow, Derek let them use Whirlwind Strike even though they didn't have that card, what the fuck? Or basically being like, well, what's the point of even attacking if Derek's just going to let them kill them? Now, I do this stuff all the time in PBTA and Dungeon World. And a self-confessed cynic says, if we survey PBTA and Daggerheart players, I believe less than 1%. There are more females watching this channel than there are PBTA and Daggerheart players who play it my way, right? And I agree with what Vin is saying. Now, I think my way is right, but I have, struggled to, we don't say females, we say women or something. Oh my God. Okay, fine. There are more women. Well, they could be a teenager, which would technically make them a girl. So female is very more inclusive in that respect. Fine. There are more women watching this than there are PBT or Daggerheart players that would agree with me. So yeah. Right. I got to go very Ferengi. Female. A female human. Correct. My GM move for your fail is you succeed at a cost, insert FBT. Iluvatar. That is 100% right. And I honestly think that most of the time, when I run PBTA in Dungeon World, I use that kind of move all the time. And it is always incredible, the response that people get. And they love every minute of it. Unless there's someone who hates themselves like Vin. Like Self-Confessed Cynic does. 99% would have the goblin swarm the warrior and something bad happen. Absolutely. Absolutely. So most players are coming from D&D, and Raw is king, despite all the reference points from the old school designers that suggest not to go Raw. I agree. I mean, true, you can play games where you can't miss. But see, here's the thing. I don't need to play a game where you can't miss because I'm playing PBTA. And in PBTA, you can't miss if I think it's cool. Right. And Self-Confessor says, correct. I would think it was bullshit and we were playing a baby game. What the fuck did I roll for? You rolled, and I think OS usually is an OSR player and would say, I would hate that so much as well. Correct. That style of game is very unappealing to that type of gamer. Now, keep in mind that when I'm playing a different type of game, I GM very differently. When I'm running an OSR game, my job as a GM is to challenge the players and challenge the player characters, right? I want to challenge your character and I want to challenge you. That's challenge. I want to make you earn it. You don't just get to come into my dungeon and get gold and get experience points. You have to earn it. And I'm going to challenge you with it. Okay? When I'm running PBTA or Daggerheart, I am not running my game like that. When I am running Daggerheart or PBTA, my objective is to create and tell what I think is the most exciting, fun, cinematic, whatever the game's emulating intention story is, given the context of the game that we have. I respect people who can enjoy both kinds of games. I am not one of those people. PBTA makes me physically sick when I play it. Well, see, at least he knows what he's about. Wow, you're picking it up after the TPK. Wow, Pumpkin, that's crazy. But see, Wes Lawrence is with Cynic on this as well. Yeah, again, there are different, that's why it's crazy that we call all of these things RPGs, because there are such different outcomes that people are looking to play. And it's no wonder that when people get together to play role-playing games, you can have so many people who are like, I'm having no fun, or I'm having a lot of fun, or, why is this so frustrating? And it's because it could be a very different experience for a lot of different people, and what they expect out of the game and what they think an RPG means and how it means. But the long and the short of it is my approach to Daggerheart, when I say I'm ignoring the mechanics, I don't view Daggerheart as a game that is designed to try to challenge the PCs. Did you make a cool build? Did you choose the right cards? Can you beat my balanced encounter? It doesn't matter, because even if they can't, they'll just choose to avoid death. So my perspective on Daggerheart is the mechanics are there, the moves, all the powers and all that other stuff are just there to like give you fun buttons to press, Yeah, Daggerheart is so far from something like Lancer. Lancer is a very different game. In Lancer, I am not going to be, letting you miss and then being like, oh, you can hit anyways because your mech is so cool. No. Lancer is a game that is about challenging the player. And really, it's about challenging the player character. Like, how, are you good enough at this game? It is one step below, at least the combat part of the game. It is one step below a miniature skirmish game. And that is where the line is drawn. Pumpkin says, my players would rather re-roll their characters and play PF1 again after a TPK than play Daggerheart. I've really been trying to push Daggerheart. Correct. So this is the paradox that I don't care about, right? Which is the paradox of, well, this thing exists in the game and somebody else has it, so that means that no one else can do it. Okay. And we've talked about this before, right? But the classic example of this is, did I close it? Oh, I did close it. Hold on a second. I got to reopen it. So the classic example of this is the Dungeon World SRD. Okay. So let's take a look at the Thief. This is the Thief playbook. Okay. And the Thief has this move. Okay. We'll take a look at one. Tricks of the Trade. This is a Thief class move. When you pick locks or pockets or disable traps, roll plus dex. On a 10 or higher, you do it, no problem. On a 7 through 9, you still do it, but the GM will offer you 2 options between suspicion, danger, or cost. Now, this is a Thief ability. Does this mean that no one else can pick a lock or a pocket or disable a trap? No, of course not. What it does mean is that only the Thief gets access to this move. So if you are a thief in Dungeon World, okay, and you go to pick a lock or disable a trap, this move will trigger because you have this move. And we will roll dice, and then we'll figure out what happens. But if you are not a thief, let's say you're a fighter, let's say you are a wizard, and you try to disable a trap, well, then what happens? This move doesn't trigger because you don't have that move. So what move triggers? The answer is no move triggers. Instead, the GM makes a move because in Dungeon World, in Powered by the Apocalypse, when the player states something, we look to see if a move triggers. And if a move doesn't trigger, then instead it is a GM move. And do we have a list of GM moves? And so instead, the GM, now remember, this is not a list of descriptive, right? This is descriptive, not prescriptive, right? This isn't the only thing that the GMs can do. But when the wizard goes to pick a lock, instead, I, as a GM, will pick one of these moves. And again, remember, it doesn't necessarily have to be this. But like, I might offer the wizard an opportunity with or without a cost. I might show them a downside to their class or race or equipment. I might use up their resources. I might tell them the requirements or the consequences and ask them if they want to do it. The point is, I, the game master, get to decide what happens when a wizard tries to pick this lock. But when a thief or a rogue tries to pick a lock, I don't get to decide what happens. Instead, when a thief tries to pick a lock, the GM has to shut the fuck up. And what happens is you're going to roll 2d6 plus dex, and if you get a 10 or higher, you do it, no problems. End of stories. So. PF1 is so much reading. I mean, look, 3rd edition is my favorite RPG of all time. I will probably never run it again, but it's my favorite. It's my favorite RPG of all time. Yeah, Trevor and I have met a couple times, but most recently we just met at Kelsey's Dion's birthday party at Gen Con this past summer, and we really hit it off. He was like, "Holy crap!" He's like, "You might know more RPGs than me." He's like, "I don't know if I've ever met anyone who's known more RPGs than me." So we really had a good time. And yeah, it'd be fun to have on the stream, especially because I'm about to start off my own quasi solo play, and it'd be kind of cool to pick his brain about it. Well said. You know, we should do that. We should get a group together and we should play 3rd edition D&D. No holds bar, old school game. I don't know what that would possibly. I'd have to run a module. Something. I don't know. It'd be something. Maybe like Return to Temple of Return to Temple of Elemental Evil. I love Rapana Thuk, but most people don't like big, scary, mega death dungeons. What else? Shackled City, although it does have some structural problems. Age of Worms. I'm trying to think of some of like the great classic 3rd edition modules. Red Hand of Doom is really good, but only if I ran Red Hand of Doom once, and it was really good. My last hurrah for PF1 was a game with all of PF1 and all of 3rd edition and all of 3.5, and we went 1 to 20 and then spent a bunch of time at 20 just acquiring templates and crafting bonker items. That sounds like the perfect 3rd edition experience. But Derek, are we allowed to multi and prestige class? Probably not. I would probably be like kind of a Nazi about that and be like, no, we're not. I'm not allowing that stupid bullshit there. And then everyone would be like, well, then I don't want to play in your 3rd edition campaign. And I'd be like, yeah, fair enough. They're like, because the reason, see, again, even my love of 3rd edition is very different from why other people love 3rd edition. A lot of people love 3rd edition because they love those crazy broken combinations of multi-classes and prestige classes where you have 17 classes and, by the time you're level 10, you have 7 classes. I hate that part of 3rd edition. I hate it. I despise it. And like I said, luckily I never had to bring down the Iron Fist because my players thought it was lame as shit too. So it worked out. In fact, like I said, I think the most classes a character ever had in my 3rd, I'm not even kidding here. I think the most classes a character ever had was 2. We occasionally would get characters that were like, level 6 paladin, level 14 cleric, or like level 3 barbarian, level 17 fighter, or cleric fighter was one that I saw quite a bit here and there. But I think, honestly, I think it might be 2. And I can count the number of prestige classes. I played 3rd edition from 2000 to 2009. I can count the number of prestige classes that were taken on one hand. There was one character who was an assassin for like 5 seconds. We had one person who was like a dragon disciple. We had one person that was like a prestige class from that Weapons of Legacy book. There was definitely a 4th one, and there might not be a 5th one. I honestly only think we only had like 4 or 5 prestige classes ever in 9+ years of playing 3rd edition. Right, the MSR, the mid-school revolution. Fabu in Road to How to Do would be pretty sweet. I mean, that'd be kind of cool, right? I mean, a part of the problem is a lot of people have played these games now, Sunless Citadel, Forge of Fury, but I bet you there's a lot of people who have never played. It'll come to me in a minute. Nope. Oh, Speaker in Dreams, Standing Stone, Heart of Night Fang Spire, Deep Horizon, Lord of the Iron Fortress, and Bastion of Broken Souls, which was the original 1 to 20 release of modules for 3rd edition. Red Dead of Doom is great. Correct. Why have the splats if we can't break it? Well, then because it's not. Again, my playing 3rd edition only to have these really super broken characters, I think, seems lame to me. I don't know. Yeah, see, all of that was terrible. Wizard, Master Specialist, Lore Master, Archmage, all of that sounds terrible, Jess. There you go, Pumpkin. I approve. Highly limit. Hey, thank you, Seabeard. Congrats on the 5 years. Do not make it to many lives, but appreciate the days, if not weeks, of VODs to listen to after the fact. Still catching up on Mech Week. Well, that's all right. I've been sick. I was at PAX. I was sick, so you have an opportunity to catch up. Well, I really appreciate the support, though. It's very, 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 very generous of you, and I really, really appreciate you so much for that. Thank you so much. I'm glad. Look, not everybody can catch the lives, and I appreciate that. I appreciate you showing your support there. Oh, what was I going to say? My question is, to all of those of you who are playing 3rd edition. Now, I know you're talking about Pathfinder 1, and Pathfinder 1 made it stupid. But when you guys were playing 3rd edition, were you guys not playing with the rule where you get massive experience point penalties if you multi-class into a bunch of different stuff? Like, were you guys just ignoring that? Or like, I'm just trying to figure out like what you guys, what were people doing where they were taking all of these different classes other than cheating? You had prestige classes. Okay. But see, there you go. No one I played 3rd edition with ever used multi-class XP penalties. And I think, Jake, a lot of people didn't. And I think that's what led to people having all these crazy fucked up characters. Now, Pathfinder, to be clear, Pathfinder 1 got rid of the XP penalty completely. So instead, if you took a level in your favorite class, you got like +1 hit point or +1 skill point or something. For sure. But again, OSUly, my players always just self-balanced on that. See, maybe that's part of the problem. I just had such great players. My players didn't need to be reined in because they knew that stuff was broken. They were GMs too. And like, they didn't want to just, break the game. I don't know. I would play 3.5 again just because every other edition keeps doing psionics wrong. PowerPoints are the entire point. Pun intended.
Shorn tipped $51.
Hey, Shorn, thank you.
Hey, a stream I'm awake for. Let's get this goal.
Well, thank you so much, Shorn. Thank you. Thank you. And with that, the emergency refit Phoenix protocol is complete. Thank you, Shorn, for coming in hot at 2 a.m. Again, I thought I was going to do a short stream, but we went into dark mode, and it's been nice. I started going off on rants, and that kept me interested. Shorn, thank you so much. I really appreciate you, and glad that you're here live, and I'm glad that you're a part of our community. 8 a.m. your time. Yeah, makes sense. I gotta get over to the UK at some point. Right. So a lot of my spellcasters in 3rd edition, like my wizards and stuff, they would they'd cast a lot of haste spells. They would cast a lot of bull strength and bear's endurance spells. They would cast a lot of bark skins and good berries. You know what I mean? Like a lot of my spellcasters, and again, this is over 8+ years of playing the game. They really just liked buffing the melee characters and watching them go wreck face. I never had a problem with hyper spike gamers in 3rd edition. And in fact, I think 3rd edition hyper spike gamers is bad because 3rd edition was so unbalanced in that way that if you had the ability to just pick whatever, abilities that you want, from a Magic the Gathering perspective, it would be like playing Vintage, right? Where you have cards like Black Lotus and Ancestral Recall and Time Walk, and they're legal, and you can let people choose them. And if everybody's going to choose them, then you're going to have to do some serious work on the GM side, assuming that your players want the game to be about challenge. If the challenge of the game isn't an aspect of the game, then whatever, let them have fun and let them go nuts. I don't think there's ever been a version of any game ever where haste hasn't been OP. And I think the reason for that is because the primary limiting reagent, especially in a turn-based RPG, is actions, is turns. And so haste has always been one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful buff that exists in the game. To be honest with you, here's how little I know about 5e. You ready? I don't know what haste does in 5th edition D&D. I don't. I actually don't know. I actually don't know. James, we summoned the Dark Derek. Part of the problem is I hate psionics in general, so we never actually, I don't think we ever, no, we had one psionic character in all of the time I played 3rd edition. We ran an Eberron campaign, and we had a Kalishtar psionic. Which kind of psionic was she? I don't remember what kind of psionic she was, but she was a, I really don't remember which one, because there was one psionic class for each stat, I think, which I did like. But she was a Kalishtar, and she was some psionic. I don't remember what psionic she was. An egoist, whatever. I don't remember exactly what they're called. Thank you, Iluvatar. Enjoy your meetings. Well, correct. Like in my last Pathfinder campaign that I ran, which was Dragon's Delve, I banned wands of Cure Light Wounds. So there was that. Because it made the game stupid. Oh, now that's kind of cool, Karama. That actually is kind of a cool sound of it. 3.5, but everyone is single class, so you can't multi-class. But you can't be a class from the player's handbook. You know, you've got to be like a factotum or a a knight, a dusk blade. I'm trying to think of the most obscure 3.5 classes. I mean, yeah, sure, of course, sword sages, crusaders, totemist. Oh, shout out Magic of Incarnum. What else? What was that one? Really weird. Mesmer, Beguiler. That's it. I said Mesmer. It was Beguiler. It's like from Player's Handbook 2 or something. Let me see if we have a complete list of. All right. These are all technically. All right, here we go. And of course, it's on Giant in the background. These are all the classes, by the way. Here we go. We've got Adept. Well, technically, that's an NPC class. We have the Archivist, the Ardent. That was one of the psionics. The Aristocrat, that's an NPC one. The Artificer was from Eberron. Barbarian Bard. Bossarian Dancer. I don't even remember what these are from. Battle Dancer. I don't know. Beguiler. There it is. Binder, that's from Words of Magic or Tome of Magic. Brigand, don't remember what that one's from. Crusader, that's from Book of Nine Swords. Deathmaster is from like Libris Mortis, maybe. Dragon Shaman, Dread Necromancer, maybe that's the one from Libris Mortis. Duskblade was the one I was trying to think of before. Factotum, Favored Soul, the Sorcerer Cleric. Gladiator, Healer. Oh, shit, I forget. Hey, how do we make the Cleric more binder? Or more boring? We make it the Healer. The Incarnate, the Inventor, the Knight, the Lurk, the Mage Right. That was an NPC class. The Marshal, the Mystic, the Ninja, the Paladin. Oh, wait, no. The Scion, the Psychic Rogue, the Psychic Warrior. Oh, these classes. The Samurai, the Sha'ir, the Shugenja. Oh, the Sohei, the Warblade, the Warlock, the War Mage, the Warrior. That's an NPC class. The Wilder and the Wu Gen. I don't even know all of these. Like Vudan, I don't know what this is from. Fuck, I love 3.5. Favored Soul is awesome. Tim had a favored soul named Horus. Now, technically it was in Pathfinder 1, but we converted it from 3.5. Hot take. So many classes is stupid. Mishi Knight, you're not wrong. And to be clear, Mishi Knight, they only made all those classes so that they could sell more books. So 100%, there was no reason for them to exist. They only did it so that they could keep selling us, shoveling us splat and crap over and over and over. I don't even think it's a hot talk. Right, you're not wrong, but also you're wrong because it's awesome. And exactly, you're not wrong, but you're wrong. I think everyone loved the Favored Soul. I think Favored Soul is a great class. It was an awesome class. It was a different time. It certainly was. Yeah, that's a lot of classes, boy. So, at first I was like, well, I mean, how many, I think, well, everyone loves Favored Soul. That's because it was done really well. What other class did I like? I liked for an F20 game, the amount of classes is a bit excessive. I mean, we're getting there with PF2, right? Pathfinder 2 has, how many classes does Pathfinder 2 have? By the way, Pathfinder 2, to put this in perspective, Pathfinder 2 came out in 2019. Okay? It's 2026 next month. Right? It's December 1st today. Okay? That means Pathfinder 2 will have been up 7 years. 7 years. Right? Third edition was from 2000 to 2008. So Pathfinder 2 is about to have been out for as long as basically third edition. Let's see. Pathfinder 2 has Alchemist, Animist, Commander, Druid, Magus, Monk, Sorcerer, Summoner, Gunslinger, Inventor, Exemplar, Barbarian, Bard, Fighter, Guardian, Oracle, Psychic, Swashbuckler, Thaumaturge, Champion, Cleric, Investigator, Kineticist, Ranger, Rogue, Witch, and Wizard. So, no, we're not quite at the third edition levels of ridiculousness here. It is crazy. Classes sell books, and yet 5th edition didn't do this at all. There's only been one new class in a decade. Outercraft. Yes. Unless you count third party, in which case there has been 12,500 new classes. But point taken. Sir Trent says, yeah, that sounds about right. I am in 2 Pathfinder 1 campaigns right now, and they will be my last hurrah. I do not have time for this. That is 100% right. Well, I mean, FabU has added 2 or 3 new classes every year in their expansions, right? In each of the atlases, I think they've added 2 or 3 classes, right? That's true, Goblins. With free archetype, you are getting there. There's a lot of archetypes, that's for sure. Right. Well, right. So 5e and Pathfinder 2 maybe kind of did the same thing. Well, obviously PF2 has more classes, but there's a lot of archetypes in PF2, and there's a lot of subclasses in 5e. That's true. Right. Classes sell books, but you only need 1 or 2 of them. Right. They were a fool with the APG, Jess. They gave us 5 classes in the APG, and then they were like, wait, we don't need to do that. Let's just sell Rage of Elements, and let's just sell them 1 class, and people will buy it because it's 1 class. They are Legend of 5 Rings books. Well, these ones are Legend of the 5 Rings books. Did you try the D20 Oriental Adventures in Rokugan? That is when I got introduced to Rokugan, is through D20 Oriental Adventures and the D20 Rokugan book, which at the time was owned by AEG, which got bought by Wizard of the Coast, and thus was strangely both L5R and D20. Sick. Smith was going to be a gourmet floralist in our FabU game that never got off the ground. Oh, yeah, completely. PF2 archetypes are literally just a better version of prestige classes. for sure. Right. Some classes sell books. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, games have to wear many hats, and one of them is how do you make it so that you can keep selling more books, you know? It is what it is. You got to sell the books to make profit, you know? And I mean, I don't even own that. I don't really own anything for 5e, but I own like one book, and I think it has like 8 new classes in it. Some folks gave me a copy of this, and it has 10 new classes and 152 new subclasses. So, yeah, that's a lot. I would have thought that people would be clambering all over themselves for new subclasses for Daggerheart, but they're really not. Well, Shorns, I haven't actually really dug into their content, so I have nothing to actually say about it, but probably. I don't even know if yeah, Smendon, it's very interesting. It's very interesting. Again, it just seems to me like what people no, that's the thing. I don't think people really care about completing the pairings. I thought people would be obsessed with it, but they are not. Again, I'm saying this as an outsider, but as someone who, you know, I probably know Spencer Stark and those people better than you all. Which is not like a super flex. I'm just saying like I'm a little bit more tapped into the zeitgeist of that and the Reddit community and stuff like that. And yeah, it just does not strike me as something that people that they need in their lives, you know? Jake says, I am, though. I am obsessed with it. Well, Jake, at least, you know, you're honest about that. So, yeah, I mean, I think some people are getting problems because you have spikes that are going to play Daggerheart, and then they are becoming very disappointed, you know? Yeah, Pumpkin said it best. Yeah, but I don't necessarily know that the game is even good for theater kids. I think that's just because they're coming in from that sort of critical role adjacent belief structure, you know? All right, fair enough. Like there was never a Marshall controller, Jake. It was always a shame. Although I will say for the 450th time, if I remade 4th edition D&D, I would leave the rogue as a martial striker, and I would change the ranger to a martial controller. Now, they did do a ranger that was a controller called the Seeker, but it was kind of like a weird primal martial hybrid, and I really didn't like it. No, I just want a martial controller. No magical doodahs, just a martial controller who is a ranger. And they would use arrows and traps, okay, to be a controller. And it would be kind of like a WoW hunter in some ways. And it would be awesome. And it would be great. And it would solve a problem because the ranger was way too good of a striker in 4th edition. So you solve many problems. See? Look at that. Boom. Got it. Right. Get rid of the dual wielding bullshit. Okay. Get rid of the board, you know. Yeah, exactly. There is no reason, okay, hold on a sec. There is no reason why you couldn't just make a vertical column of golden flames. All right. There is no reason why you couldn't make, what am I doing here? Power, everything. No, power. There we go. There is no reason why you couldn't make this wizard attack, okay? Burst 1 within 10 squares. Each creature in burst, intelligence versus reflex, d6 plus int modifier fire damage. All you do is you just make this into a burst 1 within 10 squares. Each creature in burst, dexterity versus reflex, 1d6 plus dex modifier physical damage, piercing damage, and you basically just describe it as, a volley of arrows. That's it. That's all you got to do. Literally, this is like the default. The default. Anyways, thanks, Jams. Appreciate it. Anyways, 4th edition was so good. You haven't lived, okay, until you've dropped a vertical column of golden flames, all right? Especially when you came from 3rd edition, when you realized that this was the Wizards' at-will ability, that they could do this every single round, and it felt like so, and it was within 10 squares. That's 50 feet. It's a burst 1. That's a 3x3 area. Incredible. Wizard was so cool. How many classes did 4th edition have, though? 4th edition had a lot. 4th edition had 77 classes. So, yeah, 4th edition had a lot of classes, too. Now, some of them are going to be the hybrid classes, so they don't really count. Yeah, see all these hybrids? All right, so you can, you can cut the classes in half, basically. Well, the reason the formatting is confusing is because, number one, this isn't an official SRD, okay, because there is no official SRD. So there's that. But the other reason is because this formatting has, the updated information and stuff like that and all this other stuff. And so it doesn't have the same color formatting as it would be in a normal thing. But my thing just died. Now we're really Derek After Dark because my little flickering fire thing died. Yeah, that is correct. There were 577 Paragon paths. Yeah. There are a lot of them. All right, folks. Well, the fire has died. And so too must I. So Dark Sun 4th edition would be cool. Eberron 4th edition would be cool as well. Even the Nentir Veil is great. 4th edition is great. Again, it's just, if I were to play 4th edition, I would need a really robust, highly legal way to play it. And it doesn't exist. So, alas, they have killed it. And I don't think I'd ever play it in person at this point in time in my life. So, unfortunately. We could end on the question of the Martial Controller. It was missing. It could have been there. Eberron's Sun reaches when? That'd be really cool. People don't know what they're missing, Karma. But there's just no good way to play it legally, and especially when you start playing with a mega game and you require all this stuff to be fun. It's going to be crazy. Yeah, what Keith does for Daggerheart, I think would be really good. I think Keith and Daggerheart's a good mix for sure. So, hey, well, there's so many people to give thanks to tonight. Again, this was a celebration not just of this channel, but really of you all, because we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. And yes, I mean you, because I would have given up on this a long time ago if, one, people were assholes. And yeah, we get some haters every once in a while, of course, and we have fun with it. But 99% of the time, people here are awesome. They're incredibly valuable members of our community. And that could be that you're a member of our Patreon. It could be that you're just somebody who shows up to the lot of views. a lot of live streams, or maybe you're just someone who leaves comments every once in a while. But the fact of the matter is, I would have stopped doing this if people were jerks. And I pretty much fully expected for everybody to be horrible. And I was very pleasantly surprised that you were not. So, thank you for being you in that regard. Secondly, let's talk brass tacks. Some people have made it their personal business to financially support this channel for going on 5 years. And whether that's people who joined the Patreon when we first kicked it off in 2021, to people who've just discovered us in the last year and are dropping $15, $20, $30, $40 tips every week. Without that kind of financial support, we wouldn't exist. The reason, I don't get views. I don't get sponsorships. And because of that, there's no way for me to monetize this channel outside of direct financial support from patrons and supporters like you. So thank you so much for that. You've enabled me to do this. And even in this year, when so much went wrong, to be able to fall back on my passion has been an incredibly blessing, just a blessing, not even in disguise, a blessing right out in the middle of the fucking open.
$5, a tip for the road. Love you, KLC.
Thank you, King Hodop. And I think King Hodop, he says, I love you, KLC. And I think that's the most important thing I want to say. We started this as a channel playing Pathfinder 2. And Knights of Last Call was me, Bob, Matt, Danny, and Rory. And now Knights of Last Call is 600 people. Maybe it's even more than that. People who have not joined the Patreon, but who come to every live stream. Knights of Last Call is a philosophy. It's a way of thinking about games. It's a way of engaging with the hobby. And that is what I'm really, really proud of. Hopefully I've made people better game masters, better players, better human beings. But, watching the last couple of years at Origins Game Fair go from being like 10 patrons showing up to 20 patrons showing up to 30 patrons showing up, and people saying, I didn't even attend the con. All I did was play games with Knights of Last Call members. And now for 2026, we're talking about basically running our own convention within a convention and maybe getting 50 plus people to show up from all over the world so that we can all hang out and play games together. That is where I'm beyond proud. And outside of any sort of financial incentive, I think that is the true reason for why I do what I do. And that's to support and to build and enhance this community. So thank you to the incredible list of people, both tonight and in the last 5 years, who have supported us. You guys mean the world to me. And hopefully I will be fully recovered, and we'll be back this week with our normal live streams, but also with a special version of The One Ring on a Wednesday. If it happens, it'll be Wednesday. Where has the time gone? I have no idea. Somehow, 5 years have passed. We went from 0 subs to almost 16,000, from no patrons to 600, and yet somehow RPGs still just aren't good enough, Where's the... Oh, yeah, it's all gone to cameras. Only cameras, yeah. So, with that being said, as always, thank you for joining, and we'll see you next time on Knights of Last Call. Good night, everybody.